18. What's your if you could pick a favorite country that existed in 1891 that doesn't exist today, what would it be?
1891?
Yeah, for me it'd be Persia.
This seems very specific.
That's where my globe is from.
Oh, nice.
Prussia, Josh.
Prussia. Oh, let's
Does
go back
Prussia
up
still
here.
exist in 91? Does it still exist, or is it the German Empire already?
I'm looking at it's I believe it's German Empire. I'm trying to find where it's Germany. Yeah. So sorry.
Darn.
Yeah, Switzerland's there. Italy's there.
Which was just renamed, by the way.
Yeah, Austria-Hungary.
It was the Prussians who took over. Actually, that would be the answer. That's a great answer. Austria-Hungary, because it's not even one name; it's two.
It's two.
Like all those football player last names that have the hyphenation. That's really, they got it from Austria-Hungary. That's where it came from.
Yeah,
they're all just history majors that are very passionate about world history.
Of course.
That is a very specific question, though, Josh. I love that. Is that just because the globe's that old?
Yeah, it's because the globe's from then.
Wow.
Is it bad that I literally have a map of Europe on my one wall and it has how it has changed on smaller maps right next to it? So I just looked at that.
That's cheating. Okay, you know what? What about your favorite African country that doesn't exist
actually
anymore?
think you should always be able to use the resources around you. And I'm the one who put that resource on my wall.
That's like a freaking Disney Channel.
I didn't use my phone. That would have been cheating.
That would have been cheating. Ooh. See, I also don't want any of this Africa stuff because it's all like just random Europe colonizations where they just didn't even care about the borders. Anyway, we should probably we're gonna record a podcast, aren't we?
Yeah. I think I'm rolling on my end.
Oh, I should let me pull this up. Let me Audacity. Yep, I'm good to go.
Cool. Sweet. Johnny, if you're good, I can get it started.
Yes, I am. I'm good. I'm recording now.
Okay.
And
cool.
Recording.
Let's do it.
Yeah, here we go.
Welcome to the Fifth and Goal podcast. My name is Aaron. I am joined once again by my good friends Josh and Jonny. We are back with another episode. It's episode 79, and my goodness, we had a chaotic week of college football. Plenty of upsets to go around. The NFL was equally as wacky and just drunk at times. So we're here to break it all down. It's an exciting week. We've got some fun games ahead of us. But before we do all of that, Josh, what's up, man? How was your week?
Ooh, my week was fun. I got to watch football. I wasn't able to watch football last weekend. I had just about 1,000 to 1,100 pages to read for grad school because they also hate football.
Sad.
Yes, they do.
But I was able to actually watch the first half of a lot of games. I watched the first half of Alabama, Texas. I watched the second half of Kentucky, Florida. The first half of BYU, Baylor. And what else did I watch? I think I watched one other game that I will remember eventually. But then I went over to Facebook. We have Fifth and Goal Sports on Facebook.
Uh-oh.
And so I'm on my phone. I'm logged in for notifications. So I just, we get a good engagement, which is good. And we're thankful for the good engagement on
correct.
Facebook.
Yes.
Keep trashing us.
I didn't realize that I didn't realize that in the space of like would have been barely 24 hours, maybe just like, maybe 48 hours, that Aaron and I got ratioed on Facebook.
There were thousands of comments, and I'm not exaggerating. Thousands.
No, thousands on. So, Jonny, ironically, did you? Yeah, you got to check.
Yeah,
these
somehow
out,
Jonny, who is known for his hot takes, gets like scot-free.
Johnny's NC State
my
take is
hot
apparently normal.
My freezing cold takes are just popping off.
I know they are. I know they are.
After this week, they look brilliant.
But
brilliant takes.
You picked Iowa State in your playoff last year, and probably not very many people know about it. I know it's last year, but
I will proudly, bear my burden of living and dying with Brock Purdy.
Yeah,
that's the reason why Iowa State won this year.
And that's probably
of Brock Purdy in the game.
Right. It's probably a bit of a low blow for me to bring up last year, because you're right. It was last year. That was a long time ago.
Yeah.
Not that we had perfect. Not that our picks were perfect either. But sorry, Josh, go ahead.
No, you're good, Johnny. Check out your engagements. So,
my gosh, Josh, you did just get fried.
Yeah,
Aaron.
Yeah, it's ugly.
I don't have a single comment
for the viewer
NC
at home.
State didn't lose,
right?
So that's part of it. They certainly didn't lose by 46 points, Josh. That's part of it.
No, but see, here's
Utah's
the thing. People
not
didn't discover
actually
it the day
dead
of.
yet.
No, they're not.
Utah's not actually dead yet. My picks are alive.
Funny.
Not necessarily well, but they're alive.
What's funny, so for the viewer at home who doesn't want to go on Facebook right now, which I get it, I wouldn't either, except I kept getting these notifications. I had to figure out what was going on.
Jeez.
It's our college football playoff predictions. It's our top 4 teams from like 2 or 3 episodes ago at this point. Johnny's picks, 14 like laugh emojis, which we get it.
Mm-hmm.
My picks, 1.2 like 1,200 and 1.2 thousand, 1,200 with
they're
600
only
plus
laugh
comments.
Emojis.
It's only laugh emojis though. No one else likes it. It's only laughs. It's only laughs.
Marshall.
To be fair.
Josh,
To be fair, I have 2 teams that have gotten absolutely clobbered. I'm not saying I didn't earn it. I'm not saying I didn't earn it. If you notice, checking the engagement, I myself added a laugh emoji.
Oh, well done.
Your pick not only got beaten down, it got kicked after it was already buried.
They are, Marshall.
My.
Turns out it was so, and this is how bad it was, and we'll talk about it when we actually get into this. But the Notre Dame loss was so bad. People who I know actively do not follow sports, who are based in West Virginia, were tweeting out "We are," and I'm like, "Oh no, this is bad, guys."
Yeah. They're WVU fans.
I was gonna say, like, they're WVU fans, and I'm like, you know what? Screw it, we are.
All right, Josh. Somehow you had Notre Dame and Oregon, and I'm over here with very similar picks to John. In fact, we have 3 of the exact same teams. Do you want to know my ratio, guys? 2.8 thousand laugh emojis on mine.
Almost 3,000, and like you have almost the amount. I had like 600 comments. You have almost 2,500 comments.
I have over 2,000. Yeah, that's ridiculous.
Listen, to be fair, it's mostly from boomers who just want like Alabama and Georgia again. And we're like, guys, stop.
Yes.
We're like,
we hit the Georgia every once in a while on this show, and if you've been listening for a while, we hit a nerve. And my goodness, somehow we found every Georgia fan on Facebook.
What about Georgia? Listen,
Josh, my favorite comments were the ones where like, I can't believe these guys get paid to make such horrible predictions. I'm like, dude, I wish.
I wish we got paid.
Someday, but
are you taking my
just the assumption that like this is like a fully function? Well, more on that in a bit.
Are you offering?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. In fact, ironically, that comment is helping us grow. So in a way, that comment is helping us get to that point.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Hopefully we'll get paid. So, you pay me, I'll make worse takes.
Yeah, you'll go all Desmond Howard. Look, Josh, as bad as your picks were, you were not Desmond Howard. So you can hang your head high. So
I might switch to Pitt. I might switch to Pitt. I might.
Yeah. Yeah.
They already lost, Josh.
Better than Notre Dame.
I'll switch now. Listen, I'm not doing too hot in the NFL either at this point. So
it's 1 week.
It's not a bandwagon.
No, I'm talking about Cowboys. I'm talking about one of my picks.
Well, that's all right. Well, I still say it's 1 week.
It's the 1 year. It's the 1 year I figured I'd be nice, and to be fair, it was against Tom Brady, so
we got off the rails immediately on this episode. I love it.
Johnny, how was your week?
My week was great. I normally, this is where you insert personal note or story or something I did in my free time. My personal time and free time this week was all football and sports.
That's glorious.
And that's with the Premier League getting postponed. So, gosh, I have no idea what my week this fall is going to look like when there's soccer to watch too. So, everybody, I would say pray for me, but I couldn't be happier. So maybe just send a text every once in a while just to make sure that I'm actually sleeping.
Yeah, or send him
not
like a really depressing note about your day just to like keep him humble, like just balance him out a little bit, you know?
So I've just been watching film, staying up for Oregon State, Fresno State, Baylor, BYU till 3 a.m. Just outstanding. Wouldn't want to spend my time doing anything else.
Yeah, it's great to have college football back. In the NFL, obviously, it's good to have that back too. My week is good. I mean, nothing crazy. A lot of football as well. We'll get more into that right now because we had a very, very wacky week of college football. Here's the moral of the story, and we probably said this before. We will most certainly say it again. Never let anybody tell you that this week of college football looks boring because that's when the best things happen. We had 2 ranked matchups this week, I believe. We had that Baylor BYU, and then we had Florida Kentucky. Those were the only 2 ranked matchups. But after all the chaos, 3 top 10 teams lose. Of course, Notre Dame loses to Marshall. Baylor does lose to BYU, and Texas A&M loses to App State.
Oh, that's the other game I watched. Yeah.
Yep. So in the midst of that, Texas nearly knocked off Alabama, a 1-point game. Who saw that coming? Certainly not us. We've been...
Not the refs.
Yeah, well, the refs did see that coming, actually.
They tried.
Yeah.
I got the clock ready to go just in case.
Yeah. So I don't know. I guess we can just kind of pick a game that we watched and we enjoyed the most and roll with it because there's so many games and we probably won't be able to hit all of them, but we'll just start and dive into it.
Yeah.
Can we start with just a round of applause for the Sun Belt East?
Yes.
Just fantastic.
Amazing.
Sun Belt's back, guys.
Yeah, yes, it is.
I believe they earned this week. like around $4 million.
Yes.
To go into South Bend, College Station, and Lincoln, Nebraska, and beat the heck out of those teams.
Yeah.
Like, well done. You guys are fantastic. This is after Old Dominion, week 1, takes out Virginia Tech. So the Sun Belt is alive and well. They're doing fantastic. I would love to know what the feeling is like to get paid to go into their house and beat the heck out of them.
Mm-hmm.
That's got to be a different feeling than just pulling off a conference upset where you just beat someone because you got paid for it too. They paid. It's like paying for medicine probably at the pharmacist. You know you have to take it even though it's the worst. But Sunbelt, fantastic.
Yeah,
you guys pick a game you want to talk about.
Man, I don't want to take the big one, but
you can.
Well, not the big one, but Alabama, Texas was the one that I think shocked us all. And what shocked me, not necessarily from the Texas side, I think they performed, especially with, I'm trying to remember his name, but the second string quarterback who came in and did actually, once he settled in, did okay, especially against
Hudson Card.
Thank you. Yeah. Did great overall. Some dumb things. I mean, he had an intentional grounding that was very much a rookie mistake, but like it happens, and he was throwing some dimes, or at least throwing some better than he had any right to. But I will say more than Texas surprised me with, you know what, they're actually being pretty competent here. It was the lack of discipline on that Alabama defense. I should have pulled up the stat before we recorded, but listen, you already know what we pick for our college football stuff. So you know that it's not going to matter, the quality. But they had like the most first quarter penalties since like 2008 or like 2010. It's been like over 10 years that it's been that bad. And you could tell that as far as like, I mean, all the dumb pass interference stuff that like you especially at Alabama, you should know better than to be pulling some of the crap that they were pulling. And it didn't feel like an Alabama team that we are used to. Yeah. And now to be fair, hallelujah, please, more of this, because we need someone to. This encouraged me. I don't know if Texas is back. Also, to be fair,
right? like.
Yeah, this didn't prove anything because also Texas is historically just hot in the first half of the season anyway, at least in the past few years they've been. So this is the Texas team you want to have, enough unearned confidence before, they get, beat by Kansas again. But like, but now I'm like, okay, I don't know. Like, obviously Nick Saban's got to be furious. Like, that's not how he doesn't want he doesn't like hearing the phrase in the media, oh, Alabama escapes Texas. Like, that doesn't look good. If the boosters complain about him not winning by 14 points or more every game, like, that he's getting earfuls from those types of fans now. So like, I know he's going to try and make adjustments, but that lack of discipline, like, that shouldn't exist, period, on a Nick Saban. At least we didn't think it should exist on a Nick Saban Alabama team. And so I don't know what adjustments you can make at this point. I mean, obviously the message boards will go fire the entire defensive staff, but that's always fun. I love message boards. So I don't know what type of adjustments Alabama's going to have to make in order to shore up this team, because a lot of those mistakes were just mistakes, like, almost in the moment, where like they just weren't thinking, where individual players just weren't thinking well.
Right.
And it's like, it's not going to take, you can't iron all of that out in a week. So, pleasantly surprised that Texas held its own. Still waiting to see from them. Very surprised to see very much an un-Alabama-like Alabama out there in Austin. So I'm very, and then obviously there's every controversy as far as like that. Ooh.
Yeah. You don't even need to say it. Everyone knows. Everyone knows what you're talking about. Yep.
Everyone knows. I'm not saying that they got paid, but my goodness.
I mean, some of it's a mixture.
To be fair,
like, it was
unfortunate. Texas also missed a 20-yard gimme field goal in the first half. Like, I realized it was a good tip, but it's a 20-yard. That is almost a gimme. You cannot, no excuse for that.
Yeah, and that would have forced Alabama to at least score a touchdown.
Yes,
like
at
the end to win it.
Change their strategy. Yes,
right.
So it's not entirely on the refs in that Alabama thing. Yeah,
no,
it's not entirely It's not entirely, and like, and honestly, to be fair, I've not heard that much conversation about that.
And
like,
if you look closely too, the only Texas touchdown was a clear, obvious holding they missed. Again, and I'm nitpicking a little bit. Overall, they were very, very bad, and mostly in Alabama's favor. But to say the refs cost Texas the game is probably a bit much, because they had every opportunity in the red zone and just didn't capitalize.
Absolutely.
I would say that it's a series of unfortunate events in general.
Yeah.
Because if any one of these things don't happen,
yeah,
Texas wins the game.
Yeah,
Ewers gets hurt, and it sounds like, luckily, it sounds like potentially he could only be out even 3 weeks, which would be fantastic.
That'd be a miracle,
we all hope he comes back. He looked like he was balling early. He had great velocity on the ball. If he doesn't get hurt, they win. That's not a hot take at all. Everybody's saying it. And right. Alabama fans know it if they really, really watch the game and are being honest. Hudson Card doesn't get hobbled. Texas wins the game.
Yeah.
He couldn't move. He was a sitting duck in the pocket. You literally had to injure both of their court. And I'm not saying they purposefully hurt him by any means. Don't hear that. But if they don't get hurt, they win. If Alabama gets called for a really blatant face mask on Bijan Robinson and doesn't have to kick a field goal because it happened at the 5-yard line, they're going to get first and goal at the 2.5. Most likely score. Again, most likely, not for sure. But, they need to execute better in the red zone anyway. But it was about as blatant of a face mask where you twisted the helmet of the running back in front of the line judge. I don't understand how that gets missed. Josh, you're right, though. Execute in the red zone. You missed a 20-yard field goal. You have to do it. But Bryce Young saved Alabama. Like, that's the story.
Yeah.
He dodges an incoming corner blitz that was brilliantly called. Every part of it was done brilliantly, except the finishing tackle, because Bryce just ducks at the perfect time, scrambles, and gets him into field goal range. Otherwise, he's sacked back at like the 45, and there's no timeouts left, I don't believe, at that point. Alabama's scrambling to try to figure it out and get into range. So it's frustrating that any one of those things happen. And we haven't even talked about what should have been a safety in the end zone. any one of these things happen, Texas wins the game. But let's give credit to Texas. The defensive line was outstanding.
Yeah.
Overshone was great at linebacker. The secondary, my goodness. Now, I don't think Alabama's wide receivers are special like they normally are, but there was not a soul open until the final drive of the game. Not a soul.
And even then, it was
Quinn
Gibbs out
Ewers-
of the backfield. Like that's just a whole
Yeah.
different part of the equation for him.
Right. Alabama's running backs don't know how to pass block. The offensive line is just as worrisome as last year. It's not better. You assumed it would be. The wide receivers are not better than last year. You assumed they would be. Alabama's defense is fine. I wouldn't overreact to that. They are fine. The penalties were the main killer, I think, on the defensive side. Will Anderson's got to show more maturity than that. Also, just more restraint. I mean, he's leaping off sides. I understand the crowd noise, and this is Alabama doesn't play true road games non-conference.
Yep.
That's the main thing of concern for me. The last 2 seasons, Alabama really has struggled on the road. Should have lost to Florida. Should have lost to Auburn last year. I'm missing another one.
Oh yeah,
But they have Arkansas and
LSU?
Tennessee on the
and to be
road.
fair, LSU.
They
Yeah,
have
and
Tennessee.
technically they're
and
A&M was
Arkansas on
only
the
8-4.
road.
Like
Yeah, and that's
Yeah,
on
it was
the road where
it
they
was
lost.
a mediocre. Yeah.
Yep.
You have Tennessee left on the road. You have Arkansas left on the road. I believe Ole Miss is on the road.
Oh yeah.
LSU, I know you guys want to just dog LSU right now because they look horrible against Florida State. That won't be the same LSU team that you play near the end of the season. So that's a real concern. And the penalties, they were either lack of discipline or not being able to handle a road environment well. Lots of offsides. I think Will Anderson himself was responsible for 3 of them. Over 100 yards of penalties, 15 of them. I think don't be alarmed as an Alabama fan, but there's real concerns here for a team that was supposed to just devastate not only Texas, but the entire schedule really that they were going up against. So I don't want to focus completely on Alabama. Texas played a heck of a game, played out of their minds. I hope they're able to respond this week. UTSA, that's a really rough draw with, I don't know if Hudson Card's even, ready to go for that game. You could potentially have your third string quarterback. The Roadrunners are a phenomenal team. I hope they're able to take the positive energy out of this game and for their own sake. I know we dog Texas a lot, but it was great to see such a great atmosphere in Austin and see them flying around and playing so well against Alabama again. We dog them a lot, but personally, I would love to see Texas actually be back.
Yeah.
That'll be fun.
And relevant in the national landscape.
Yep.
And this is why you don't do neutral site away games. Just go to the stadium. It's so much more fun.
So
But
much more
also,
fun.
This is Alabama's now almost Achilles heel where they have to play at some. This is why Saban has been interested in some neutral site away games. You have to go into Austin. You have to go into.
Yeah.
Yeah,
We'll see. I
hoping.
think that's the biggest
We can
takeaway for
only
me
hope.
this week. Because yes, did Georgia just crush Oregon in week 1 and look good again in week 2? Yes.
Yeah.
But remember, last year, we just talked about all the games that Alabama either lost or nearly lost last year. And yes, they made it to the national championship game and won an SEC title, but it was interesting. But remember, Alabama beat that Miami team by about the same margin that Georgia beat Oregon. So yes, right now, as we're looking at it, the AP polls got Georgia ranked number 1. Based on what we saw from Alabama, just kind of the tendency through 2 weeks, you think, okay, well, Georgia seems maybe head and shoulders above everybody else. And look, that might just be true. But I think you guys kind of hinted at it. It gives me hope that we could have a wide open college football season, which is always good. That's always good. So that's exciting. Who knows? Maybe we'll get some Big 12, some ACC, some Pac-12 teams in the mix. But a team we're not going to see in the mix is the Texas A&M Aggies. We told you they weren't going to be in the mix at the beginning of the season. Jonny, one of his freezing cold takes that looks like it's going to be true, or at least is heading in the right direction, is that the Aggies would finish outside of the top 25. There was plenty of historical precedent to say that that would be the case based on what they've done under Jimbo Fisher. I came in saying, hey, maybe 2 years they're really good. I'm now questioning that after that loss to App State.
Ooh.
Texas
Listen.
A&M. Here's you guys want to hear the weirdest stat of college football
Hit me
so
with
far?
it.
You guys want to know who is the best red zone offense in college football right now? Perfect in the red zone.
Are you
App
serious?
State.
It's App
No,
State?
it's not.
Okay.
Oh,
I was gonna say, I'm like,
sad.
that's brilliant.
It's Texas A&M.
Is it Iowa?
No, it's A&M. App State seems like the correct answer. It's not. Texas A&M is the best red zone offense. All right, quiz question, guys. Who has been in the red zone the least of any team in college football so far?
Oh man,
Drum roll, please. Texas A&M. What a weird stat.
that's so
Bizarre.
strange.
So
we don't get there often, but when we do,
deadly.
great.
I mean, this offense is bad. I'll credit Josh Pate, who I
I'm
listened to
sorry,
quite
they've
a
been in the
bit.
red zone. I'm sorry, they've been in the red zone fewer times than Iowa.
Yes, because Iowa has 2 punt blocks that have ended up getting them in the red zone.
Yeah.
I'll fact check this, but I'm actually pretty sure that's correct, which is just hysterical.
What is football, guys? I know that last 2 weeks ago it was just last week we were yelling about how there's
Right.
the 12-team playoff. Listen, college football's back. It's great.
Yep.
At the end of the day,
And in
It's just gonna be
Josh, in
fun.
fairness, if the playoff was at 12 now, we're looking at Marshall and App State and Georgia Southern and being like, huh? Sun Belt East.
Hey?
Winner out of the Sun Belt East. Probably they're in the playoff.
making
Not
a
probably,
poll to
they
become-
are. They're in the playoff.
they're a poll to make another to be a Power 5.
Yeah. So anyways, that's kind of the game that stuck out to me the most. I mean, that is bad. The offense is just atrocious. No offense to Haynes King. I'm sure he's a great person. But just being a college football analyst, when Haynes King won the job for the Aggies, I was concerned because he didn't really show you a lot last season to make you feel confident. And on top of that, Texas A&M lost Isaiah Spiller, who ran for a bajillion yards the last few years for the Aggies, and they clearly have not taken a step forward. I was going to say Josh Pate, who I listen to, and I know some people like him, some people don't. I think he's generally a pretty level-headed, reasonable take on college football. He had kind of a funny analogy where he's like Jimbo Fisher is stuck in 2014 offense, and he's exactly right. And he's exactly right. So I don't know what happens here because here's the other problem. It's not so much that Texas A&M is 1-1 and this App State, the humiliation of losing to App State. So right next week, A&M hosting the Miami Hurricanes game day, getting set to go to Texas A&M. You kind of just based on the schedule next week, everyone saw that coming. App State goes in there, kicks their butt, holds the ball for 41 minutes. Time of possession just crazy. And now College Game Day is going to App State, which is awesome. Good for Boone, North Carolina, which if there's any part of that city that's left standing after just the loot and pillaging after the game, then good for the city. Not a great day to be a city official in Boone, but a great day to be a fan.
It was the most pure joy.
Yes.
Those
They deserve
TikToks,
it after
they
last
deserve
week.
all of it.
100%.
Imagine if they won that game, though, guys. Imagine if they had held out and beaten North Carolina, too. I think they should be ranked anyway. But
They received 80 AP votes.
Yeah.
if they win both of those games, where are they ranked? Because it certainly shouldn't be in the 20s. I do want to make sure that we mention that too. App State didn't win on some fluke in A&M.
No, correct.
I know they only won by 3 points. They kicked their teeth in.
Yep.
They held the ball the whole time. I believe they had one drive that was over 9 minutes, 14 plays for a field goal. I mean, that's dominating at the line of scrimmage.
Yeah.
You can't do that unless you're getting great offensive line push. You have Chase Bryce, who's a veteran quarterback. He's been at Duke. He's been at Clemson before. Is that very memorable stepping in and saving Clemson in one of their games. And App State is this shouldn't surprise anybody. They've had so many close calls since beating Michigan, since joining the FBS. They nearly took out Tennessee. They nearly took out North Carolina this time. They did beat North Carolina beforehand. They have innumerable close calls. I believe they almost beat Miami one of these years. I don't want to tell you to stop scheduling because I love it.
Yeah.
But why you keep scheduling Appalachian State, I don't know.
Especially when you
Coaches
have a
come and
stadium over
go.
100,000 capacity.
Players come and
Yeah.
go, and they remain. They are a solid program, one of the most consistent in the country. Credit to Georgia Southern too. They got into a shootout with Nebraska. That wasn't a fluky win, not at
No.
all. Marshall, not a fluky win. Notre Dame looked like they seized control of that game in the fourth, scoring that touchdown to go ahead and 2-point conversion, and Marshall stuffed it right down their throat to take the lead right back. Like all three of these upsets, there's no fluky weird bounce for a pick or fumble or anything like that. They all beat them like face to face on the field this week. So Aaron, your concerns with A&M are real. They're very real. Jimbo can clearly recruit, as can Texas A&M donors. It needs, and we all kind of agreed that they were at least a year away with all this young talent. This is still we gave all that credit to Appalachian State. This is still unacceptable. To not be able to find a way and win at home in that way. As all three of the teams that I mentioned, it's unacceptable to lose those games.
The future is bright based on the recruiting class and based on some of the talent they've put in. But here's the problem. If you just completely fall on your back and you don't even give yourself a chance to get to kind of the top of the mountain, if you will, here's the rest of their schedule. And guys, I want an answer after I read this off. How many wins do you think we have here? Or maybe a better question is how many obvious wins do we have here? This week, they host number 13 Miami. Then they play number 10 Arkansas in Dallas, at Mississippi State, at number 2 Alabama, at South Carolina, home against number 20 Ole Miss, home against number 18 Florida, at Auburn, versus UMass, versus LSU. I count one. UMass is the only game, based on what I've seen through 2 weeks, and look, we're 2 weeks in. Will this be an overreaction? I don't care, because this is fun to talk about. Based on that schedule, there is only one game against UMass that I say, you know what? There's no way Texas A&M loses. They could absolutely lose any of those games unless something dramatic happens and the offense improves and they figure stuff out. But as of right now, there's nothing that they have shown me that makes me think they will. And that concerns me because, yes, do I think Jimbo can get to a point where Texas A&M is a national power? I do, because just the recruiting itself. And it's overall a relatively young team. But there's concern right now that you're not going to be able to get to the point where you have a really good season because everything is going to, if Jimbo goes 6-6 this year, he is gone. I think he's probably gone. I know they owe him a ton of money, but clearly that's not stopping anybody from firing coaches if Nebraska taught us anything this week. By the way, to finish my point,
get into that?
We can get into that next. To finish my point, this dumb, stupid team scheduling App State in 2024, Dabo Swinney and Clemson. Whoa, take that L, Tigers fans. So, anyways, that's the next upset for the Mountaineers, 2024. Write it down right now.
Man.
All right, but Nebraska, we talked about it in week 0 because ours will give you go away. Crazy.
Yeah, it's absolutely insane. And, I try to listen to the local media as much as I can, as well as the national guys when it comes to college football. And you know what? This is your classic move where clearly the alumni and the boosters are calling up the Nebraska AD and saying, either one, we'll pay it, get rid of him, or I'm not giving you another dime if he's still the coach. And so that is not, because that is tough to swallow that much. But the loss to Georgia Southern was just the end of the line. And you could tell the team's gone. He lost him.
Oh, yeah.
I you know what? We talk honestly a decent amount of Nebraska on this podcast. I am stunned that it went this poorly.
Yeah, me too.
And I think most people can truly say that. I feel for Nebraska fans. Like, they're really good. I feel for Scott Frost. Like, he wanted to do better than this. He can't even disagree with this result at this point, like this decision. No. I can't believe, he's coming. That UCF team that ran the table and beat Auburn. He's, native son winning that championship at Nebraska as the quarterback. You're like, if anybody can do it, anybody can get it. It's him. For it to go, not only not work, but to go this poorly, it's not about it hiring the wrong coach at this point. I think Nebraska fans have to be worried whether they can recover from this.
Yeah.
Recover from Mike Riley and Scott Frost and all the poor coaching decisions in the past. And I would even say poor decisions to fire some of those coaches early on after Tom Osborne.
Yeah.
This is a tough pill to swallow for them because they have to be looking at the landscape and saying, can anyone fix this? Is there a coach that can come in and fix this? You have fantastic facilities, great donors, great fan base, not a good recruiting territory. Can somebody come in and fix this? I'm not sure.
Yeah.
I'm not sure. I'm starting to even doubt now whether somebody can come in and fix this, or at least the ones that can are willing to go and attempt to fix this place. It's a great place for college football, but it's sad to see it go this poorly. But I don't think anybody disagrees with the decision after losing to Northwestern and losing to Georgia Southern. It's just unacceptable. It was their very first time losing at home when they scored 35 points or more. I believe they were like 240-0 before this game.
They were undefeated. And including Scott Frost. Real quick.
Yeah.
Programming notes. My recording stopped at 7 minutes in, and I just realized it. So I'm so sorry.
No, you're good.
I don't know what happened. I didn't bump anything, but yeah, it stopped for some reason. So sorry.
No, good. Well, I can blow from the stream. Not a big deal.
Okay. Thank you. Okay. Back to the normal programming.
You're good.
And you can always interrupt us too if that happens. That's not a big deal.
That's right.
But no, you're good.
You guys were saying good things.
No, it's all good. I can get it from the stream. That's partly why we do it. Sweet.
Yeah.
Any other Nebraska thoughts?
I do. Yeah, I have some. So it's interesting that you mention that stat, their home stat, undefeated when they scored 35 or more points. Because I got 4 more stats for you.
Oh, wow.
And this, I think, is emblematic of Nebraska almost being so. You talk about this, Aaron. Scott Frost was supposed to be. I mean, he was the golden child. He was supposed to be their answer. And I think in sports, so often we can look and so deeply desire something that we want. Like we can so deeply desire a result that we're going to ignore every other red flag that says, hey, don't go there or leave. Stop whatever's happening. Like this isn't good, in order to hopefully achieve that thing you're trying to get. Because this is not, when you look now, you're like, oh my gosh, this is terrible. Scott Frost at Nebraska was 5-21 in one-score games. We know that. 0-13 against AP top 25 teams. 10-29 versus Power 5 teams. And overall 15-30. And we've talked about this before, but I think it's just still crazy. If this happened at, like, let's pay attention to Notre Dame, but let's pay attention to Alabama. If Ryan Day did that at Ohio State, if he lost 2 times in a row to Michigan,
right?
Like if he loses again this year at home with everything that he's been trying to build, with all the staffing changes they did, and he loses again, we are seriously talking about how much longer he's going to stay.
Yes.
We won't hold 2 seasons of that. And they let Scott Frost go 15-30 before they realized, hey, maybe this is a bad idea. And so nostalgia can be a very dangerous tool mentally. And there is, Nebraska now has to, unfortunately, shot themselves in the foot because Urban's not going to come back. He's happy doing Fox stuff. Turns out, if we're to believe that one unconfirmed report that they reached out to Urban.
Right.
You want to bring John Gruden in? Like, realistically, like who else is going to want to come in to coach Nebraska? Where, like you said, mediocre to bad recruiting, because you have to, like, in the middle of a cornfield. Listen, I don't hate Nebraska. It's a good state, good people, good stakes. But it's hard to recruit to a landlocked Midwestern, mid-major town, if anything. And so like you have to go off of either skill, like, hey, we're gonna play and we're gonna win and we're gonna get national championships, or at least we're gonna be in the fighting conversation, or culture. And you don't have either of those right now. You have good boosters and you have a good passion, good history, but that's not why you're getting 4 and 5 star recruits. And so they have a really, unfortunately, they've shot themselves in the foot, and they have a long way to go again if they're even able to hope to achieve like a fraction of what they used to be at.
Yeah.
So,
I mean, we're talking about a team that, and I'm not trying to kick the guy while he's down, but did Scott Frost like genuinely set this program back by like a decade? I don't think that's a crazy conversation to have. I know this is 1 year's recruiting rankings, but recruiting has gotten worse. And obviously this is what happens when you lose games. Josh, to your point, it's gotten worse and worse. Do you guys want to know some teams that had a better recruiting class this year than Nebraska? Here's a list.
oh,
And again, no offense to these teams. We love all of you, 131 FBS teams, but here's a snapshot, right? Boston College, Iowa State, Purdue, West Virginia, Rutgers, Vanderbilt, somehow Iowa, Mississippi State, Indiana, Arizona, although credits to Arizona for having the number 20 recruiting class in the country, but that's a list. Nebraska in the days of our childhood should be better than all of those teams on the field, in recruiting, and in really every way imaginable. And unfortunately, it's just not worked. And for a variety of different reasons, the defense was never there. As much attention got put on the offense and the fact that he finally brought in an offensive coordinator to call the plays. Yes, that was part of the problem, but just from top to bottom, this just was unfortunately a complete disaster for Nebraska. And look, they play Oklahoma this week, so we'll see how quickly, if they pick up the pieces with an interim coach. I mean, the season's young. Yes, you have 2 losses, but what can you do? Can you salvage this into a bowl game? They haven't been able to do that. As we've said, 1 loss has become 5 for the Cornhuskers, and that's certainly what happened in week 0. The Nebraska loss they spiral. So I don't know if maybe an interim will just bring just kind of a fresh face, I don't know, different atmosphere. We'll see. I'm rooting for Nebraska. As you guys said, I don't have any ill will towards them, as much fun as it is to kind of poke fun at them for how bad they've been. The Nebraska fan base is great, and I feel horrible for them because they don't deserve this. But that's where we're at. So anyways, yeah.
And they don't have unrealistic expectations, unlike A&M and the other team we're going to talk about real quick. Since I know we spent a lot of time on A&M and Nebraska there, but Notre Dame, that was also a stunning game. Kind of they put up a good fight against Ohio State, especially in the first half. You really expected them to, maybe they'd have a little trouble early on. There's a bit of a hangover after that, big time game in Columbus. So I think you saw the score at half and you're like, okay, I thought it might be a little bit of a struggle, but they'll figure it out. And like I mentioned earlier, Marshall just dominated them. And I think the most alarming part is Notre Dame's offense can't do anything. And now Buckner is done for the year, I believe. Is that correct, Aaron?
That is correct.
He's done for the year.
Yep.
He was struggling anyway, but he was your clear decision at quarterback. And I believe Pine is now in, who's been there and has been unable to win the starting job. So that doesn't give me a lot of confidence. Notre Dame's schedule is not what it was last year. It is brutal. They got Cal coming into town, I believe, this week. So what are your guys' thoughts on Fighting Irish and Marcus Freeman, what this season's going to look like?
I was high on Marcus Freeman coming in, and I don't want to be wrong because I think he's got potential to be really good. But look, he started 0-2 in his career. If you go back to the Oklahoma State game, a game in which Notre Dame had a double-digit lead and lost the Fiesta Bowl to Oklahoma State, and you thought, okay, whatever, right? And then they played against Ohio State, and it was, to a certain extent, very similar. You had a halftime lead, and then were completely inept on offense and lost. And then you play this game against Marshall, his first home game, and Marshall wins 26-21, and the game was, depending on how you look at it, wasn't that close. It's the same situation here as with A&M. I gave you guys the schedule because that's going to determine how the season goes. Here again, when is the next Notre Dame? When is the first Notre Dame win? When is Marcus Freeman's first win? You talked about it. Cal coming in to Notre Dame this week. I would argue that in the next like 4 weeks, that's their best opportunity, and that's going to be difficult because at North Carolina versus BYU, we saw what BYU is capable of, and we kind of knew that going in. Versus Stanford, UNLV, that's a likely win, but then Clemson, Navy's a likely win, Boston College is a likely win, and then USC. Again, it's the same situation. Yes, they could turn around the season, but as we stand right now with an 0-2 Notre Dame team, 4-8 looks a whole lot more likely than a bowl team. Right now. That will change. I do expect Marcus Freeman to figure it out a little bit, but the offense is bad. Guys, they can't rush the ball. Tyree had 28 yards against Ohio State, leading rusher. Their leading rusher yesterday against Marshall, who's not usually known for their defense, Buckner led with 44 rush yards. They can't run the ball. So there's some real concern from this Notre Dame team. Obviously, they're 0-2.
The offense is the biggest concern, and I don't think the defense was ever going to be a big concern with Marcus Freeman. But you call into question just based on his youth and his lack of experience at this point. He was only, I believe, the defensive coordinator for Luke Fickell in Cincinnati for 2 seasons, and then he's only Notre Dame's defensive coordinator for 1. And look, like what Aaron said, love Marcus Freeman. He's, he was a fun player at Ohio State. Like, he's done a great job up until this point. He has. But coaching, like everything in life, is not always about how great you are at something. It's also about opportunity and timing. Perhaps this was a little bit more than he was ready for. Again, I hope that statement's wrong. I think he's going to be great in recruiting. I think as long as Notre Dame is patient with him, I think they need to recalibrate their expectations of the season, like you're saying, Aaron, and just let's get to a bowl game. I do think they're going to bounce back and beat Cal this week. I really do. Cal is 2-0, but look at who California's played. It's only week 3. Don't overreact to records this early in the season. I'm not sure if they get to a bowl game. I'm not. I'm truly not. But the expectations need relodged. I think Tommy Rees is a bigger culprit here than people are speaking on. He was Wonder Kid for a long time with Brian Kelly there in Notre Dame. And it feels like Marcus Freeman's taking a lot of heat here, and rightfully so. But if Tommy Rees is who people say that he's supposed to be as the offensive coordinator, and Marcus is letting him run the offense, this has to be better. I mean, this is awful. It lacks creativity. It lacks explosiveness. But most importantly, like you said, Aaron, it lacks just strength on the offensive line and being able to you against a group of 5 team as Notre Dame, as one of the elite programs in the country, have got to be able to get a push at the line in the trenches. Yeah. That should be the biggest difference in your teams, should be at the line of scrimmage. So that was really disappointing. Had to be really hard for a lot of Notre Dame fans to watch. That was surprising, as most of Saturday was, even with the near misses on some of those games.
Yeah, it was wild. We've got plenty more games to watch in week 3, just to name a few. Georgia heads to South Carolina, Oklahoma at Nebraska, BYU at Oregon. Very interesting to see how the Ducks respond. Ooh. See how one of Josh's playoff teams, can they stick it out against the Cougars?
Guys, please, I need at least 3.
They are favored. That's interesting. Penn State at Auburn is interesting. Yeah, sorry, Josh. That's already happened.
This is going to happen.
And then that Miami game at Texas A&M, which all of a sudden, in some ways, kind of the wind taken out of the sails, but in another, maybe if you're Miami and you're sitting there with now a top 10 ranking, you're like, ooh, okay, this is good. So that's the news from college football. If you want more on week 3, then again, we encourage you to check out myself and Johnny's, our weekly college football show. We call it Football Mondays because apparently we used all of our creativity on this show. But yeah, that's there. It's on YouTube. So go check it out. We're going to take a deep dive into week 3. So that's that. NFL notes. We had week 1. Unfortunately, we're kind of running out of time to watch it. But Josh, I have to say, and we'll kind of walk our way into our picks of the week too, because it's kind of all encompassing. But if we were doing a head-to-head between Josh and Jonny, Josh is up 3-0 because, number one, Jonny, I know you're still in shock. I'm sorry, but Josh, Steelers.
I'm in shock too.
Oh my goodness, what a ridiculous game that was. Pittsburgh getting a 23-20 victory in week 1. So that's victory number 1 for Josh and his Steelers, who used their defense and made sure that Mitch Trubisky really didn't have to do a lot, and that's going to be the key to their success, clearly. However...
Amen. I'm sorry. Yeah, but at the same time, listen. He got 1 touchdown. Cool. He's not the answer yet, guys.
Yeah.
You don't have to try that hard to play against a guy who threw 4 interceptions.
Mm-hmm.
You don't have an answer on offense at all. I actually
No, we do. We just haven't started him yet. He's not named QB1 yet. Check out my fantasy team. Look who I drafted as my alternate.
Okay.
Yes.
No, we have an answer. We just haven't utilized him yet.
Yeah, there you go.
Like, the fact that the Bengals should have won that game is, I think that should almost be more alarming for Pittsburgh on offense than the Bengals' offensive performance should be. Because that will be the worst performance that Burrow and the offense has the whole season. And it took T. Higgins getting knocked out of the game as well. And it took the long snapper getting hurt. It was a series of unfortunate events.
Series of crazy things.
Watt got hurt as well. Harris got knocked out of the game. So it was a brutal game, really, for both teams. Honestly, no one should have won that game. Pittsburgh's defense is legit. We'll have to see after Watt.
That's what I was about to say.
Yeah,
he's out for the year, most likely.
Torn pec. So, that defense looks so legit, but we'll see what it looks like. Because he was a one-man wrecking crew as well, and sets up all of those plays. Of course, it's a domino effect. You attribute all of that attention to TJ. Now the other guys have more opportunities to make plays on defense. It'll still be a great defense. Will they be able to make that level of those plays going forward against other teams? I'm not sure. And that was also a brand new Bengals offensive line, clearly struggling to gel. That's my most worrisome piece of the game as a Bengals fan. Will they gel? Was that just a matter of they didn't play in preseason together at all? Do they need just time? And that was a brutal first defensive line to face, which that is true. But whether or not this offensive line is fixed and needs time, or they're just still bad, only time will tell.
Yeah.
Only time will tell on that one.
Yeah. That was quite the game. Your second win, was you alluded to, your fantasy football team did real well, Josh. So, Jonny, you guys matched up. We talked about it. We had kind of a 5th and goal fantasy football draft. So you guys matched up in week 1. Josh, you took home the victory. That auto draft strategy is working, man. It got the job done.
So I did it was a modified auto draft. I did actually specify who I wanted. I specified, normally it's just I found that it automatically just drafts 9 wide receivers for me, and it's never great. I prefer diversity, so I forced it to draft different people.
Nice.
And so we still got to tool a little bit. I gotta listen. I should probably have a 3rd quarterback because I don't know if Kenny Pickett will actually start, but so far we'll take it.
Yeah.
That team took it on the chin too. Burrow's my starting quarterback. Elijah Mitchell gets hurt early in the Niners game. T. Higgins gets hurt, so he's out early in that game. Allen Robinson, Matt Stafford apparently decided, I will only throw to Cooper Kupp. That's a concern, potentially, if it's elbow related for him. But yeah, that team really, really struggled this week. So congrats, Josh. Your team definitely had a great week. Hopefully that's one of my worst ones, but I lose a starting running back for most of the year, I believe. It sounds like with the news today for Elijah Mitchell, and we'll see if T's back anytime soon with that concussion. You never know with that.
Yeah, well, that does kind of take us right into our picks of the week, because we did pick the opening night of football. That was, or the NFL, I should say. That was the Buffalo Bills and the Los Angeles Rams. Jonny went for the old, where I'm going to pick different than you guys, and that did not work because Josh and I picked the Buffalo Bills. They get a convincing 31-10 victory. So the current standings, I've got 41 points, Josh with 39, Jonny with 36. The dry spell continues, but a chance to to mix it up a little bit because we could look to the NFL, we could look to baseball, Major League Soccer, college football. You know what? No, let's mix it up. Let's go the 2022 Eurobasket tournament that's happening for the first time it's happened since 5 years. Some of your favorite NBA players are hanging out in Europe representing their teams. I'm, of course, talking about Giannis and Luka specifically. So we are in the quarterfinals where Luka and Slovenia are going to take home the championship in my book. So I'm going Slovenia. That's probably maybe an upset because I would imagine just Giannis and Greece are perhaps favored. I have not looked into this at all, but I just like Luka. Some of the plays he makes are just ridiculous. Like if you think he's good in the NBA, he's like floating up like one-handed fadeaway threes and like just draining them. So it's pretty wild. The highlights from this has been kind of fun. It's also fun just to watch Giannis play against I don't want to say inferior opponents in a mean way, but you know what I mean. Like Giannis is putting up like 50 and 10 every night. It's crazy. So all that being said, Slovenia.
No, I'm not I can't pick against my guy. I can't pick against Luka.
Yeah.
Dropped 35 points against Belgium. I'm taking Slovenia all the way.
All right. Johnny?
I'm going with the odds-on favorite, which is France.
Yes.
France
is
their
version of Vegas
odds-on
is.
favorite at the beginning of the tournament. They're the number one. Lithuania is actually second. Turkey was third before they got knocked out, and Germany's fourth there, rounding out those top four. So I'm a little surprised, actually, that we don't have that they didn't make Slovenia didn't make the top four on the betting odds just with Luka. But obviously it's more than one player. I'll go with the betting odds. France, they have a lot of players in the NBA as well. So that team has a lot more depth, I believe, than most of those European countries.
Yeah, that's probably true. And Gobert in the middle is going to make life miserable for just about anybody they face. So, all right, there's our picks. But if you remember if you caught our episode from last week, you know that we're not done with our picks of the week because we are taking to the NFL Eliminator. And guys, I picked the New Orleans Saints, and they almost lost week one. I thought I was going to be done 1 week in, and then the Saints came storming back on the road against the Falcons. They won. So I survive. I'm moving on to week two, where I'm going to pick the Cincinnati Bengals. Now, yes, the Bengals had a very ugly loss. I like them to respond. They're heading to Dallas to face Cooper Rush and an offense that could be in a bit of jeopardy as they are trying to cope with the loss of Dak Prescott for 6 to 8 weeks. So I am picking the Cincinnati Bengals to win the game, and I'm moving on to week two. Johnny, I see you've got something similar, but you have to survive tonight as we're recording Monday Night Football because you picked Denver last week, so you need Russ and you need all that.
Yep, same reasons for you. I would like Cincinnati in that game anyway, in a response game.
Yeah,
without Dak, I just don't see a path to victory for the Cowboys. I don't see them being able to score on that Cincinnati defense. Will Dallas's offense without Dak really be any better than the Steelers were? Even with the Bengals on the road, I have very little doubt that they win that game. I have almost no doubt that Denver wins tonight either. I think the only reason that Seattle might keep it close is just they are at home and it's week one, and maybe Russ is still trying to calibrate with all of his receivers. But I feel good about surviving tonight and making it onto week two for Cincinnati to win in Dallas.
Yeah. Well, week one was weird. For reference, the AFC South has not had a win, and two of the teams played each other. So that kind of gives you a perfect picture of what week one was like. Let's see, Josh, you actually probably had the
field goal.
Yeah, you're right about that. That was a little ridiculous. Josh, you arguably had the best week here too. Your Baltimore over the Jets was probably one of the biggest blowouts of last week. So good job. You're moving on as well. Who are you rocking with in week two?
I think this week I've been looking, and I've been going between two. I've been going between Commanders Lions just to try and get like the Commanders out of the way.
Oh, careful.
But I'm also I know that's the thing is I don't know.
Yeah.
And so I'm also like I also don't want to follow Johnny and pick Broncos. Mm-hmm. But Broncos are hosting the Texans, and I like that.
Yep.
I think like at the very least,
Do it, Josh.
Yes, go with the heart.
All right.
Yeah, I'm taking I'll type it. I'll write it down. We're going. Yeah, I'm
They're
taking.
also hosting.
Yeah.
So
They're also
And-
hosting, so I don't think I'm not
Denver.
worried.
That's really helpful.
Yeah, as a Lions fan, I'm actually looking at that game against the Commanders with excitement because that could be a potential win. So probably good. Who knows what you're going to get with either of those teams. But all right, Josh going with the Denver Broncos. And that takes us to what we're following. I feel like there's a lot to follow. With all the chaos of college football, there's just a lot. I've got a couple things. The first thing is, if you did not see it on our social media, Jonny and I got to go attend and cover a Miami RedHawks football game on Saturday. So it was a blast. I just want to say, first of all, thank you to the kind of the Miami athletic department for hosting us. Awesome experience. If you didn't see it, we got on the field, got to cover the game. I mean, we're going to have some coverage coming from that game, some articles, what you need to know about a RedHawks team that I think could do some damage in the MAC this year. They've got a big game against Cincinnati coming up. They're bitter rivals. So a lot of cool stuff happened on Saturday. So yeah, I mean, we're like an officially credentialed media source now. Like, that's kind of cool to say. So I just want to say thank you to you, the listener, as well, for your support. Because I mean, Fifth and Goal started right here. Started with this podcast, episode 1. We had no idea what we were doing. Please don't go back and listen to it because the audio quality is terrible. But like truly, it's cool to see something that has gone from that to this, where we're getting credentialed. We're getting credentials to football games to cover it because that's what we're passionate about. So yeah, I want to thank you, the listener, for supporting us. A lot of you have been here since day one. So without you, that truly would not have happened. So thank you. And that was a really awesome time. So looking forward to hopefully doing more of that in the future. So if you're interested in that kind of stuff, make sure you check us out on social media, especially Instagram, Twitter, all those places. The second thing is we talked about Texas A&M. I want to bring it back because Texas A&M before this App State game, and I don't know who, maybe you guys can provide more details to this. They had just 5 guys in overalls. I believe this was before the game. Yeah, the midnight yell.
Yeah.
Yes.
It's a tradition that they do before every home game, I believe.
It is.
Yeah.
And they're up there just slandering App State, saying they're in the cornfields, they're hillbillies, and look.
They can't read.
They can't read. Well, your team can't play football, so joke's on you. But now this video is going viral because of just more A&M shame. And apparently the Aggies can't handle it because for every person that is retweeting this video or reposting it, and there are a lot, Texas A&M is taking like copyright action and basically copyright striking every video they find, DMCA striking these videos to take them off Twitter. But it's now a race because now people are like, oh, we can't let A&M do this to us.
We can't go
we
against the internet
earned
like
this.
A&M.
So A&M is in this battle in which they will also lose, much like they did the football game on Saturday, to Twitter users uploading this video. So log on to Twitter, watch it, repost it. I mean, I'm not trying to get your account taken down, but Texas A&M doesn't have that much power. So
you know what? They won't. They don't have that much time.
Just wait until the anime fans and crowd get into it. They won't have a chance.
I was gonna say,
yeah.
It's going to be sampled in so many rap songs now.
Yeah. So anyways, that was a great moment. Final note, Fox just announced that the Alabama-Texas game was the most watched college football or NFL regular season game ever.
College football rules.
Yeah. So there you go.
College football rules.
And that's what I'm following.
Jonny, do you want to go? Because mine
is yours positive? Because mine is a little angry.
Yours is a little angry. Mine's like conspiracy fun stuff. We can end on mine.
Okay. Because I'm mad, so I'll just go ahead and. Okay, so college football playoff rankings don't come out until mid-October, right?
Yep.
Those are the rankings that everyone's like, okay, like chill out. They don't really matter until we get to that point. And in part, that's very true. Like AP poll is not the same as the playoff rankings. And we're still very early in the season, so a lot's going to change, right? That's the same crowd that says, well, preseason polls don't really matter. That's wrong, though. Unfortunately, that's incorrect because the chairman on the playoff committee rankings has said multiple times that they've won top 10, top 5 games in September, in early October, and is referencing rankings in the AP poll because that's how you use data sets. And so when you're looking at those preseason polls matter. Texas A&M still ranked at number 24. They're still ranked. They lost at home to Appalachian State. Appalachian State's not ranked, but Texas A&M is. Explain that to me based on merit. Based on merit. They have the exact same rankings. Appalachian State just beat them head-to-head on the road. And Appalachian State's first game wasn't an FCS school. Appalachian State's played a tougher schedule so far than Texas A&M. They played North Carolina and barely lost. They were at home, but they barely lost. They went to they didn't go to overtime. They nearly went to overtime. It was at the very, very end of the game. Marshall just knocked off Notre Dame, unranked still. Oregon, who got just obliterated and made them look like it was a high school team out there, made them look like they never played football in their life, albeit against Georgia. They're ranked again into this this week. Not Marshall, not even Washington State, who was able to take out Wisconsin. Like, I don't understand. Somebody please explain to me. And then worse off, because the AP poll is mostly sports writers and other contributors to the sport that get to vote. If you don't watch the games, you shouldn't be voting in the poll. There were a handful that still had Baylor ranked ahead of BYU.
Yeah.
Some of them even had Baylor still in the top 10. You didn't stay up and watch.
Yep.
Not only did you not stay up and watch, you clearly either don't stay up and watch and care enough to be able to vote and have some factor into how teams are ranked. But you also or you sent in your rankings before the games were over. I don't understand. Even Oregon State has a right to be deserved over Oregon and A&M.
Yep.
They beat Fresno State. They beat Boise State already. They have more of an argument to be ranked than you guys. I'd leave Cincinnati in there over A&M and Oregon.
Yep.
They lost on the road by a touchdown to Arkansas, who's now in the top 10. I could argue all day and all night. There needs to be more accountability. If you have the ability to affect the season, because they do, and now there are hundreds of voters, so one person doesn't necessarily skew the entire thing, but it has an effect, and it's not just one person. There's arguments to be had on merit, or if Alabama should have dropped a little further, maybe Ohio State should have hopped them too. Those are reasonable arguments. I'm not, that's fine. It's fine to be debating where Kentucky and Arkansas should be, and Tennessee and Pitt and Utah and Florida and Oklahoma State. And these are all great conversations. Nobody's arguing generally where they should be, really. This effect, and I know you think I'm just talking about the back end of the rankings. It matters because the playoff committee looks at how many ranked wins do you have? And some people look at where they ranked when you beat them, which is laughable, really, but they look at that instead. And so there needs to be more accountability for these voters who clearly are not paying attention to the games when you literally leave in a Baylor team that just lost to BYU and are keeping them not only one spot ahead, but 8 spots ahead of BYU, that you're putting Oregon back in based on name recognition, that you're leaving A&M in. I don't even think it's necessarily an SEC bias. It might be slightly. I think it's more laziness and not watching all of the games. This is literally your job. You need to be doing this. Honestly, me, Aaron, Josh, millions of other college football fans would do a better job ranking these teams because I have no life on Saturdays and watch all of the games. That's just true. So that is my rant of the day. Stop affecting the college football season if you actually don't care and are not invested enough to watch all of the games. I think that's a very reasonable, angry take from me this evening.
Very good.
Mm-hmm. Good job.
It was a mature, angry rant this time.
You never know, but I think it was a very mature, angry rant. And there was a way to solve this, Aaron. Or you and I both know, Aaron, how to solve this, right?
Dissolving I don't know. Do I?
Well, yeah. I mean, if the human touch is always prone to error.
Oh, yeah. Okay, yeah. Yes, correct. Thank you.
No.
You grabbed a computer program.
Yeah, like
that
NCAA
just,
football
like,
14. You don't need
Kinda like
whatever
that.
the BCS used. That was clearly flawed.
Well, yeah,
the
what-
answer was simulating the entire season and making
say,
your
if you,
rankings
like-
based on that.
You know how
Oh
these
my.
big government things, they run like nuclear like tests,
Yep.
and they just kind of replay the explosion a billion times to figure out, how to best minimize or maximize damage. I don't know what they do.
Yeah, whatever.
What if you did that for like the NFL? We had like every team each week play all 131 teams, like play each other theoretically, and then the aggregate like sum of that becomes the actual rankings, and then we at the end, you have like the bowl to figure out, who's the best. I don't know. Anyway, speaking of computers and controversy surrounding computers versus human stuff, chess. Aaron, I remember you teaching me chess for that like 18 months that I was in Boy Scouts.
Yeah.
And I think I earned, or you earned, one of us earned a chess badge. Maybe we both earned it.
I did. Yep.
I don't know if I did. Because I like hiking, I like biking, I like camping. I don't like doing it with other 12-year-olds, turns out. So I left soon after.
Please don't take that quote out of context.
Don't, please. Please,
for the record, Josh was also 12 at this time.
Thank you,
at
Johnny.
the same time was 12. So, chess is a game that is very methodical and can be not quite data-driven, but very strategic. And so, back in the 90s, Deep Blue
Yes.
from IBM was the first computer to beat a human player. It was like mid to late 90s, and it was fantastic. And now, for the most part, in major chess tournaments, there is painstaking efforts taken to make sure that no one is using live, like during the actual match, computer-aided anything. You can use computers as much as you want for like training and practicing. And I think those have been great helps for the practicing, but the governing bodies make sure that nothing happens during the game. However, technology is increasing, and this past weekend's chess may have had its greatest scandal in I think in the tagline I put 1,000 years, at least in recent memory.
No, 1,000 years.
1,000 years, the entire millennium.
Is it like steroids for your brain?
Steroids for your brain, exactly. So what happens was, and I'll try and present this in a way that all of us are chess heads. We know this.
Yeah,
that's our
course.
third podcast. But
It's out there somewhere. You guys just haven't found
somewhere.
it yet.
That's
we
right.
haven't found it yet.
Oh
It's
man.
our true passion.
It's doing numbers. The in St. Louis this past weekend, maybe 3 or 4 days ago, at this tournament, the Sinkfield Cup, small elite. It's like French. Add more Q's, and I think it's Sinkfield.
Oh, okay.
And I'm pronouncing it like an American. Yeah. Sickwefield. Cool. Now we've just lost everyone in France. So sorry. A well-known guy named Magnus Carlsen. He has won 53 games straight. He going to be pretty. I don't know how he sits in the rankings, but 53 game win streak is pretty solid.
From my understanding, he's been number one for a long time.
I was gonna say this is a guy who's been the most dominant guy. He lost this past weekend, which is in one sense not surprising. You're gonna lose eventually to a 19-year-old American grandmaster, Hans Moke Niemann, who is known as relatively, even though he's a grandmaster, known as a relatively upstart type guy. He's not had the experience to soundly defeat Hans. Soon after the tournament, Magnus Carlsen, sorry, Hans Moke. This is what we're gonna do. We're gonna do this where and don't take any of this out, Aaron. What we're gonna do is I'm just gonna use last names from now on. Niemann's the 19-year-old.
Too much.
Carlsen's the number one guy.
Good choice.
Those names are too long.
So too long, guys. Listen, pro tip: if you just had a kid and you want to make him good at chess, just shorten the names. Just only give him one name, please. So Carlsen lost, was soundly defeated by this upstart Niemann, and afterwards, Magnus actually withdrew from the tournament officially. And this is a guy who is not known as being a moody person. This is not he's competitive, but this is not poor sportsmanship. When reached out about why he withdrew, he tweeted a video of soccer manager Jose Mourinho saying, if I talk, I get in trouble, or if I speak, I am in big trouble. The context was him originally trying to speak out against some things that were going on in his league that he didn't like, but he couldn't speak, otherwise he was getting in big trouble. So everyone on Twitter and within the tournament, which was still going on, it was like, wait a second, Magnus thinks Niemann cheated. However, like I just said, the governing body of chess makes sure that the only way you can really cheat against a guy like that, you have to be using computer. Two things have happened that we're thinking could be we as all chess heads are thinking that might be most likely. One, Niemann has a history of cheating, actually. He has admitted to cheating twice on online tournaments when he was 12 and when he was 16. And he claims he is very adamant that he has not cheated in this tournament. He has not cheated live. However,
he hasn't cheated live.
That's what he's claiming. That's what he's alleging. But obviously, we know that he cheated twice online. And so I'm trying to figure out the two things. So one, there's a potential that he had thrown some sort of buzzing, like binary-based buzzing device, probably in his shoes, or like maybe had to have been in his shoes.
Trash can in the stands.
Trash can in the stands. Some guy with a flashlight up in the that crowded, that packed stadium. They filled the old dome again.
Yeah, he's got his friend Queen G2.
So option one, you say that.
Yeah.
Option one is that there's a computer that's recording all of the moves and then sending him basically some sort of binary buzz of like, okay, yeah, Queen to G2 or whatever.
Mm-hmm.
Or there's some weirder theories, like him actually swallowing things that actually are inside him that are giving the same type of results. At this point, that's full conspiracy. The other one that might be more likely is that we just talked about football for like an hour and a half. Generally, the first 10 to 12 plays, if you're doing offense, like are kind of scripted.
Right.
You can vary from that.
Yeah, if you have a second and 34, you switch it up. But yeah, you're right.
You switch it up a little bit. We're gonna try running it this time.
Yeah.
But generally speaking, chess players do something very similar where they might have a set, a predetermined set of opening moves that they like. They're not going to do the same ones each time, otherwise you lose. But there's a chance that, and I'm just going to read a string of numbers because this was Marcus's first moves, that Carlsen's opening of 1d4, nf6, 2c4, e6, 3, nc3, b4, bb4, 4g3. Did that mean anything to you, Aaron?
Yes.
I'm assuming those are like the moves.
I'm unfortunately sad to admit the answer is yes.
So
I don't
apparently
have a clue.
I have no clue either. I wanted to say it was capital B little b, and I almost wanted to say B flat, and I'm like, nope, this is chess.
No, that's correct. That's correct, Josh. It is B flat 4.
It's B flat 4. Ooh, jazzy.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a chance that was leaked somehow. I don't know. I'm assuming that these guys travel with like advisors or some sort of like coach, or at the very least someone who can help, like a strategizer. And so there's a chance that strategy got leaked and that he picked it up somehow. So regardless, I believe everything Niemann did, they've like basically just called it. They've not punished him, but they kind of called everything that he's done. Carlsen's not getting negative records on his stuff. Like, they're all just kind of like, you guys, let's just chill for a hot second, figure it out until they know. So everyone's investigating right now. I think the tournament, some random, why did I say some random guy? Someone else ran and won. And so like at the very least, Niemann didn't win. However, guys, chess heads are like all up in arms about this. So I'm going to keep up. This is going to be a story that I just kind of follow a little bit every now and then to see if anything comes of it. But like, computers and chess, and cheating, St. Louis. It's all coming together.
I want to know what chess heads getting angry looks like. I'm very curious. As someone who had no idea when you guys were talking about chess, or
Twitter,
even when you started talking about music.
See,
there should just be an option on Twitter. This is chess Twitter. Would you like to view? And this is football Twitter. Would you like to view?
Yeah.
Would you like football Twitter, please?
Chess Twitter is people chess Twitter is people
view?
being angry chess heads on Twitter. Just use perfect English and grammar and express to the world how cross they are at everything that has just happened. That's what chess Twitter is.
There should be an availability to have a demo of the other versions of Twitter that I have not curated for my own personal use, but maybe I'd like to dabble every once in a while.
Yeah, it goes against every privacy setting ever, but I would love to do, I don't know,
food Twitter.
Yeah.
I'm not in food Twitter. I'd love to be on food Twitter for a day.
I just want to see short of logging into Josh's Twitter, I'm I would like to see Josh's Twitter today, or
yeah. It's a bunch of
Aaron's Twitter is probably way too
ours. Yeah, we wouldn't even know if we were accidentally logged in.
It's too
logged in on each other's account. Yeah. Yeah. Well, that's when at this point the Fifth and Goal account is basically just curated to mine as well. So I have to be careful when I tweet. I'm all right, which account am I on? So, anyways, well, Josh, thank you. We'll keep tabs on the potential groundbreaking, just earth-shattering scandal in chess. That's something. So, yeah, wow, they just pulled a Houston Astros, and there you go. All right. Well, that's as usual. We don't really know how to end the show other than with something like that. So we'll end it here. We just want to say thank you again.
Don't cheat at chess.
Don't cheat at chess, kids. Even if it's against some random kid on the internet, don't do it. I know you can pull up your phone and you can set the computer to the hardest difficulty, and then just don't do it.
We just start.
Because this is what happens. You become a serial cheater. This is what happens. So. All right. Well, we should wrap it up here. I just want to say thank you for listening. Thank you for all the great support. Even though most of the 2,000, actually at this point it's 5,000 comments on Facebook hate us, I thank you for that, because look at us, we're getting some followers on Facebook from angry Georgia fans. But we really do appreciate the support. It means a lot. As I said, Jonny and I got to go attend a college football game as media members, and that was a blast. And keep your eye out on social media. I'm not going to say where we're going next, but it's a pretty cool location. So if you're interested in that kind of thing, follow us on Twitter at Fifth Goal Sports. We're on Facebook I said Facebook, on Instagram at Fifth and Goal Sports, and we've got YouTube and TikTok stuff, and we're just kind of everywhere. So anyways, we appreciate it. Thanks for listening. We'll be back next week to break down more college football, more NFL, more chess. Who knows? We'll see you guys next week. Nice.
When the World Cup starts, we're just going to have to only let one of us talk about each subject.
Seriously.
I hate that, but it's gonna be a necessity. We'll never. I just won't even be allowed to talk football, and it'll kill me. I don't think I'm saying this because I am trying to jinx it. I don't think this week in college football will be that interesting as far as at the top. So again, saying it, hoping to be wrong and to jinx it. But my understanding of looking through every single game, even if there are upsets, it's going to be secondary ones, and I'm beating Miami, or what else do I have on here? And I'm beating Miami. I guess if Nebraska keeps it close with Oklahoma, that would be kind of your biggest one of the day, is if Nebraska is actually able to keep that close. Other than that, though, I guess BYU, Oregon, but there's just not that many teams are at risk, that are your highest profile. Texas, UTSA, really interesting. Wake Forest, they're at risk. But we're talking about number 21 and number 19. There's just I don't know. USC would be a massive story, I guess. Fresno State. So I just don't see as the teams at the top being as vulnerable this week, I guess.
Yeah.
Could be very wrong. Hope to be wrong.
I'm not picking any upsets, but there's some games that I don't think a lot of people are talking about that I would be like, it's not obvious. Like, I'm looking at one, Michigan State at Washington. I'm like,
yeah, I'm not touching that game.
I'm scared of that. Yeah. I'm not picking an upset, but.
Well, Aaron, Washington's favored.
Are they
Believe
really?
it or not, they're favored.
Oh, interesting. All right, well, maybe it's not
favored in the game.
So it is an obvious upset then. Interesting.
They'll talk a lot about that game, I'm sure, on pregame shows. And just, again, there's not a ton to talk about. Like, Alabama's playing Louisiana Monroe.
Right.
Georgia's playing South Carolina, which at least it's a conference game. But I don't think anybody imagines that South Carolina's ready for that yet.
Right.
I mean, one of the most intriguing games of the day is Mississippi State at LSU. Like, it just is. But, like, that game doesn't have a ton of bearing, really, on the national landscape.
Right.
So they're fun games. There's plenty to watch that are interesting, fun games. I don't mean it that way. I would never, ever say there's nothing interesting to watch. But there's not a ton of, like, this is a playoff-altering, top, like, changing of the season type of games. I will be proven wrong because there will probably be one giant upset that comes out. It could be that trip to Seattle. But for the most part, I just I don't see it. Ohio State's playing Toledo, Georgia, South Carolina, Alabama's playing Louisiana Monroe, an old foe of Nick Saban's. So yeah, I don't know. We'll see.
Yeah.
Okay. My upload is there.
Sweet. Very good. Well, Josh, thanks for recording tonight.
Of course.
Appreciate it.
Absolutely happy to do it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Hopefully all the
time
to school.
Yeah, time to go read about Augustine and Boethius and some other fun fellows. See what they were up to.
Yeah.
Long ago.
I'm sure Rome will never fall. So
yeah.
I'm not worried about that.
Yeah, that's
Seems unlikely.
Yeah,
seems unlikely. Those Vandals aren't much.
Yeah, I'm sure Texas is
Lombards
back.
are going to do a thing.
Yeah.
I'm sure Texas is back.
They almost were, man. They almost were.
Oh, listen, they're not back.
Yeah, I mean,
it's not about being back.
Exactly.
They're on the right path.
Yes.
It's not a leap. It's in stages.
Yeah.
Everybody
Back
hates hearing. Everyone hates hearing that. Every coach just says it. Every teacher says it.
Yeah.
It's true. Everybody hates it. But like, sorry, Texas fans. Like, you don't just have like, even if you had beaten Alabama, like, you're not like, we're back. Like, no, like, you have to finish the season.
Mm-hmm.
Like, that would have been, I mean, that wouldn't have been like a leap. That would have been, I got slingshot out of a window,
right?
Like, type of leap in the process. But good steps in that game. A lot to love.
Yep. Yeah, agreed. All right. Well, we should probably record our next show, but yeah, Josh, good luck with everything.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
Yeah.
I'll talk to you guys soon.
Sounds good.
All right.
Hi, Josh.
Have a good night, guys.
Yeah. We need to send Josh to SMU in a couple weeks for the Sonny Dykes Bowl.
I'd like to watch. Who are they playing? Maryland this week.
Yeah.
Aaron, those tickets are so cheap.
I know.
There were some tickets for Maryland SMU that were $3. If we weren't going to Cincinnati, I'm telling you, I'm literally tempted. I have cousins in Baltimore. I'd stay there.
Yeah.
Go to Baltimore. Watch.
That's this week.
50. Yeah. Watch a 52-50 final score with SMU. Maryland.
SMU's gonna be right in it. Like, this should be a close game, I think.
Well, the line's 3.5.
Yeah, that makes all kinds of sense.
And that won't be like a great crowd because Maryland never does. I mean, did you see the Pitt crowd? It's literally a ranked matchup.
Yeah.
They were so good for West Virginia, and then they're like 10,000 empty, minimum 10,000 empty seats against Tennessee.
Right.
That the crowd for Pitt drives me insane. Like, they're a good team. Like, why don't, and ACC schools are kind of notorious for this for the most part. Like, I don't understand it. Like, Virginia Tech, great fan base.
Yeah.
Clemson, great fan base. I guess NC State probably deserves to be up there. The rest of them, though, what are we doing? Like, you can't get people in North Carolina and Florida to come to football games. I struggle with that. That doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, I'm ready to roll the next one if you are.
Yeah, I'm good.
Okay. I mean, that's the kind of mental preparation it takes to think through week 2. So,
are we recording?
I just got on YouTube, so I think we're good. I'll just pull anything off from
I
there.
figured.
Yeah.
Just checking.
All right. Well, welcome to Football Mondays. It's what episode are we on? 4, I think. I think we're on episode 4. We missed a week. It's been weird, but we're back with so much football to go over. We're not going to spend as much time as we could discussing week 2 and all of the chaos that happened. We, of course, will discuss it a little bit, but as I said last week, if you're interested in that, Jonny and I just recorded a podcast that's available on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, all the podcast places, and we took a much deeper dive into week 2. So go check that out. That's the Fifth and Goal podcast. But we're here, Jonny. We have 2 weeks under our belt, and really 3 if you count week 0, which I kind of do. We had 11 games in week 0. But I'm curious to kind of kick off the show tonight. What have we learned in college football this season? And if you need a second, I've got a couple ideas. But that's my question to open up the show. What have we learned so far in college football this year?
Playing true road games matter. And that's not just the upsets that have happened. Those are the near escapes. Alabama's near escape this week against Texas. North Carolina's near escape, App State. App State then goes on the road, and A&M doesn't escape. So you don't have to play at home. Turns out the Sun Belt proved that. But playing at home matters. East Carolina nearly with NC State. Old Dominion is able to take out Virginia Tech as they travel there to play on the road. Like, playing at home matters. Neutral site games, while they might make some additional money for these teams, kind of suck some of the life out of the fans that are playing, with some rare exceptions, like playing at the state fair for Oklahoma, Texas is fantastic. That's traditional. We're not talking about those games. We're talking about the Chick-fil-A Classic in Atlanta and playing a kickoff at Jerry's World in Dallas. It's just very corporate. It takes away, like, what students aren't really able to come to the game in vast amounts. And you saw the scene in Boone after they win, but they were so great that opening week. You know, we were talking about like how great it was to see Old Dominion get to host that game, and East Carolina and App State. It's just fantastic. We need more of it. We need more of Alabama going to Texas. We need more of Wisconsin travel to Washington State this week.
I believe that game. I shows you I haven't watched it yet, but let me look.
Yeah, I haven't gotten to that one yet. But Utah traveling to Florida week 1. That's a great example. You know, like these Oregon, let's be honest, that's a neutral site technically. That's a road game almost. Playing real road games matters. Remember, these are primarily, even with the additional rules now, so you have some older than 22. This is mostly 18 to 22-year-old kids. As great as we said Alabama was, look how rattled they looked in that game and should have lost. Utah doesn't survive. They do lose. So I think my number one takeaway right now is true road games matter, especially early in the season, especially.
Yeah, that's good. Well, let's talk about, because here's a fun part of this. If you're a team, a group of 5, or even an FCS school that goes on the road, one of the reasons you do that is, number 1, to fill your schedule, but number 2, to help your athletic department out, pay some bills. So let's give an honorable mention to 6 schools that paid the bills and got a dub in the process. Of course, App State, $1.5 million. Georgia Southern, $1.42 million. Marshall, 1.25 million. And how about Incarnate Word, 400K, Weber State, 390K, and Eastern Kentucky.
Who did Weber beat Utah State?
Utah State,
right?
35-7. They beat the Mountain
Really
West
bad.
champions 35-7. My goodness.
Wow.
Eastern Kentucky, 7 overtimes, beating Bowling Green, 350K. I feel like they deserve more after that game, but courtesy of Fox College Football for that little nugget. But that's kind of just icing on the cake when it comes to all this. And I think you're right. The road games are fantastic. And I feel like we are kind of on different aisles as far as whether we like a 12-team playoff or not. I will say one benefit of a 12-team playoff is teams won't be as afraid to schedule some of these road games, because if you're Alabama and you lose that game against Texas, your season could be over. In a 12-team playoff, you're getting in the playoff every year, so it doesn't matter. So yeah, heck, go to Austin every year. So that'll be good. Now, that game won't mean as much, but I'm with you. Road games like that are fantastic. Mm-hmm. It's hard to incentivize a team to do that because there's a good chance you'll lose. I mean, that's tough to do. To go on the road and win. And
Aaron, I'll say the playoff expansion also will be nice in a sense of, instead of only focusing on Nebraska losing to Georgia in that loss,
right,
or Notre Dame or A&M, half the story probably half is being a little hopeful in my end.
Right.
More of the story will be able to focus on those group of 5 teams that win.
Yeah.
Rather than just like, oh man, they just ruined this team's season. All of a sudden, there will be more of an aspect of, wow, like App State scheduled a really tough non-conference. Like,
yeah.
And because their Sunbelt East brethren are also winning, they're really vaulting the conference up and should be able to take one of those playoff bids. So at least the storyline can at least shift a little bit more to focus on these smaller schools rather than the big ones' failures. We'll be able to talk in more of a positive light about, wow, look at their success. Look at how great that they've been playing. They're going to get rewarded for that and potentially make it into the playoff with scheduling those tough non-conference games. And I think that will be really nice, that we'll be able to talk more about Appalachian State rather than Texas A&M because the players deserve it.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. My worry is that because Cincinnati, BYU, Houston, UCF all going to the Big 12, the remaining group of 5 teams or group of whatever number, you lose so many of the teams that made the group of 5 great. And then when you do finally have a group of 5 in the playoff, they get just whacked every year. App State is probably the exception because App State has been just incredible ever since that Michigan win. I mean, you said it earlier, wins over North Carolina, near upsets against a variety of different teams. That's my concern. But you're right. In terms of the course of the year, yeah, having that discussion like which group of 5 team will make it, that's great. Unfortunately, I think it means they get beat by 30 more often than not against whoever they end up playing, but we'll cross that bridge when we get there. In the meantime, some awesome wins. Marshall taking it to Notre Dame. I mean, that's been talked about by just about everybody, so we don't necessarily need to take a deep dive. But yeah, I think that's a lesson that we learned. A lesson that I've learned, and I'm thrilled by this lesson, is I think college football this season is much more wide open than I thought. Alabama showed you some real issues. Georgia looks like they're far, head and shoulders above everybody, but heck, they're probably going to play a pretty ugly looking game against South Carolina. And
but do we know Oregon is good at all?
That too, right?
Do we know that? How
Right.
many of those college football neutral site kickoff games has Alabama played in?
Right.
The Florida State year, of course, comes to mind that you're just like, oh man, like this team's really, really good. And then we get not even to the end of the season, halfway through, and we're like, oh, that game was not what we thought it was.
Yeah. Well, right. I mean, last year, Miami will probably finish roughly, and they were like 8-4, 9-3 last year. That's pretty much where I see Oregon. Now, there's a chance Oregon's worse, but the point holds, like Alabama won that game like 54-10, and then struggled against LSU, lost to Texas A&M, struggled
Right.
against Auburn, got beat by Georgia eventually. So I'm thrilled because I was worried.
It's great.
And I personally don't care. Like if Alabama and Georgia were the top 2, and that was the way it went, I'm like, whatever. The everything below it will just be great anyways. I'll still enjoy it. But the fact that we might have a wide open. Now, at the end of the year, I think we're going to have, like we usually do, two teams that establish themselves as the clear two favorites. They'll win the college football playoff, probably a couple more blowout wins in the semifinal, and we'll have a national title. But the process will be awesome, and it usually is awesome to get to that point. So I welcome it. Week 3 is kind of another week where you look at the schedule, and I think there might be only one top 25 matchup if I'm looking, maybe two. So not very many.
Shouldn't be any.
Yes. Shouldn't be any. So we'll say one because we go on this show. We go by Johnny's top 25. Which depending
as long as there are 0 then.
Oh, 0. Okay, well there you go.
There will be 0.
There will be 0. So we go by Johnny's poll, the official Fifth and Goal Sports poll here on this show. Which, as long as you're not watching live, that will be available when you are watching this. So go check that out on Instagram. We're going to post that every week until the college football playoff rankings come out, and even then we might. But at that point, we do acknowledge the authority of the CFP. We do not acknowledge the authority of the AP poll because that is just blasphemous. So anyways, but my point, not that many matchups jump out to you this week. But if last week and just college football for all of eternity has taught us anything, it's that we could still have some madness this week. So without further ado, let's jump into our picks this week. And as we do on this show, we kind of spend some time on some of our favorites. We talk about some of these teams in depth that maybe we haven't had a chance to. So let's kick things off. Nebraska in just utter turmoil. They fire Scott Frost. They could have saved $7.5 million by hanging on to him for 3 more weeks. They said enough is enough. They cut him loose. And now Nebraska is picking up the pieces after a 1-2 start after allowing 637 yards to Georgia Southern and number 6, or whatever they're ranked in your poll that I have yet to put together. But either way, top 10 Oklahoma, I'm guessing, comes into Lincoln, where the Sooners and Cornhuskers, Big 12 opponents in years past, played a close game last year. I've got Oklahoma, and as much as I think an interim will help kind of just fresh start for Nebraska, that defense is horrendous. Northwestern looked like a more athletic football team when they played. Dylan Gabriel, if you play college fantasy football, I hope you have Dylan Gabriel this week, because my goodness.
Aaron, the line reflects what Nebraska has done in the past, and that is under Scott Frost, rise up against superior opponents and somehow lose close games.
Yep.
It's 11.5, which is actually kind of shocking in some senses of like, how is it only 11.5 for all the reasons you said? Dylan Gabriel's going to run wild. It will be Oklahoma's best test for their new defense under Brett Venables. Like, it will be. Nebraska has been able to score. That has not been much of an issue this season. It's actually one of my bets for the week, though. I like Oklahoma, and I like Oklahoma to cover, certainly, and win by at least 2 touchdowns. 11.5 is really a very reasonable number to take that bet. And, of course, we're talking with Monopoly money again. Yes. But I really like Oklahoma in that game. Maybe there's an infusion with an interim coach for Nebraska, an infusion of life. I'm not betting on it, though. Their souls look crushed over there in Lincoln. It's sad. It's really sad.
Yeah, it is. No disagreements here. I like Oklahoma. I like them to cover as well. Sooners by a lot. All right, how about this matchup? BYU heads to Oregon. Is Oregon good? You just asked the question a few minutes ago. This will be a very, very good test because I can tell you BYU is good. I don't know if their offense is extremely explosive. They've got a potential to be. They lost some key playmakers from last year's team, but they handled number 8 Baylor, and for a lot of that game out-muscled Baylor, and they're going to do that, and they're on the road. BYU plays a brutal schedule, but BYU was the Pac-12 champion last year. I know Utah was the Pac-12 champion. BYU went 6-0 against the Pac-12. I love BYU. I'm going to take them in a close, hard-fought game. I think this has kind of, honestly, last week, if you just take last week's film and if you just swap out the Baylor green with the Oregon green, I think you could have a very similar game as far as play style, which is great for BYU because that play style was exactly the way they wanted to play that football game. So I'm taking BYU. It's close, and I'm probably not going to have it super confident. And by the way, we are doing confident picks. These are our ESPN picks. So if you're watching and you're in the Fifth and Goal group, then you've been here. Welcome. If you're not and you've been picking, then join our Fifth and Goal sports group on ESPN, where I forgot to mention this at the top. We are both 11-9 on our picks, so not great, but we're in the top half of the standings. I've got 76 points. You've got 73, so basically neck and neck
Very
there.
tight.
Yes.
Yeah.
Anyways, I'm taking BYU.
I have BYU. They're 3.5-point dogs on the road at Oregon. I don't really understand this.
Just a letdown game?
Oregon.
Or do you think it's more a fascination with Oregon?
I don't understand this. Josh talked about it in the podcast today. Sometimes you want something to be true, so you try to manifest it. People want Oregon to be good. Yeah. I think they're bad. I think Georgia is better than we thought, but in that game, if you have a pulse, that game is at least more competitive. I really worry about Oregon. I know they dominated their FCS team that they played this last week. That's utterly meaningless to me. BYU is already battle tested. I don't think there's necessarily a letdown. I think the only difference is Oregon's had an extra week to plan for BYU. I think and they're home. So there's a chance that the game stays close. It's another one of my bets, though. I'm betting it with Oregon being a favorite. BYU's going to win outright. 3.5-point dog. No way. Cougars.
Wow. All right. 2 picks, 2 bets. All right. Here is the next one. Penn State, Auburn, both 2-0. Penn State ranked in part because of their opening week win against Purdue. They handled business against Ohio. And we have the same clash we had last year. Of course, last year, if you remember, it was a great Penn State whiteout. Auburn is doing their best to return the favor with an Auburn out, an orange out. So apparently they were floating around the idea of doing orange uniforms. I don't think it's happening, but either way, Auburn hosting this and looking for revenge and looking for a 3-0 start, which they desperately needed because the schedule for Auburn ramps up significantly. I'm taking Penn State in a close game and in a just grueling physical punch you in the mouth kind of game. I'm going to say Penn State wins, maybe even on a last-second field goal. They've got a freshman running back who is going to set the world on fire this year. So look out for that. Penn State by 3.
I'm right there with you. Penn State tight. Don't feel good about it. I think this is a game Auburn could easily steal. If you've been enjoying the Iowa Hawkeyes the first 2 weeks of the season, I don't think there will be a whole lot more points scored in this game. So you might want to tune in for Penn State Auburn this week. I think it's going to be, like you said, Aaron, grinded out run game. You'll see Sean Clifford running the ball a ton. You'll see both quarterbacks are just going to be running this ball a ton. It's going to be 7-minute drives that end in a punt, 8 or 9 minute drives that are field goals. That will be the nature of this game. Perhaps some ineptitude on offense, and it will probably be an offensive mistake that costs one of the teams the game rather than a play that wins it. So I'll go with you, Penn State.
Yeah, Nick Singleton, 210 rush yards in his first 2 games. So that's the player to watch. Okay, we'll just get this one out of the way. Minnesota hosting Colorado. Minnesota by who cares how many points? Unfortunately, Colorado is just simply maybe the worst team in the FBS. I know Charlotte has something to say about that, but Colorado is really bad. Minnesota wins this handily at home.
Colorado is easily listed as my worst Power 5 team, as you mentioned there, Aaron. Unfortunately, the betting line is really high, so I'm not necessarily willing to. It's a lot of points to be able to bet there, but it's one of my highest confidence picks.
This will be this will be my top one.
Minnesota might be the best team in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, that's a real possibility. That is a genuine possibility. Yeah, for sure. All right, how about this App State? What will they do with the energy of college game? And of course, a win against Texas A&M. But what will they do with the energy of college game day? They play Troy. Troy is no slouch. I think the Mountaineers take care of business. I think there's a chance they could be over emotional off of that win against Texas A&M. Got to do a little bit of a reality check. How will they respond to game day? But my guess is with all the energy, it will just feed that defense that is tremendous. Chase Bryce is a veteran. He's been there in college football at least for forever. And Cam Peoples, one of the best running backs in the nation for App State. So I do like the Mountaineers here against the Trojans.
The Nears will win. Like you said, Aaron, it's fantastic that they're home after that win. I think that's critical. Game day coming in has to help refocus them and make this feel like it's another huge game. I really think if they're going to have a letdown, it'll be next week, not this week. Just there's a lot of aid coming in from third parties there to help App State not have that letdown. And they've been there before. So I expect them to win. I thought about this one. It's 11.5. I think that's realistic. App State wins.
Yes, I like it. All right, we move to the SEC, where Mississippi State is taking on LSU. Mississippi State starting the year 2-0. Good for them. A good win last week, I believe, against Arizona, if you stayed up for that one. I'm taking the Tigers. I actually like LSU to bounce back. I think they're getting a lot of negative attention for how poorly they played in week 1. I think this could also, I think we're going to have a lot of ugly football games. This could be one of them, but it'll be interesting to see Mississippi State with Mike Leach. You already know what that offense likes to do. They like to throw it 50 plus times. How will that work against an LSU secondary that in theory should be pretty good, but in practicality hasn't necessarily played that way? I do like the Tigers to win this game. Jaden Daniels actually has the highest QBR in the SEC right now, and I look for him to have a big game, and he'll be the difference in LSU's win.
Aaron, I can't necessarily disagree. I'm still bouncing back and forth with this game. It's your classic. Everybody's just killing you after week 1. The biggest jump, biggest improvement, coaches always say, is from week 1 to week 2. People are already dogging LSU. Honestly, in some senses, it might be the best thing that happens to them this season. Might bring the team together. This will not be a lost season for LSU. I do have Mississippi State winning just from the quarterback play position. I have a hard time. Will Rogers is just a much better, more experienced quarterback. I'm going to go with him, but I expect this to be a really, really fun game. It's Death Valley at night, correct?
It should be a fun It's a 6 p.m. ESPN kick, yes.
Yeah, yes. It'll be at night then. So, 2-point favorite for the Bulldogs. So I think Vegas realizes what this means. And Mississippi State's not used to being a favorite playing LSU. So it'll be interesting. But I got the Bulldogs.
All right. Our first difference. Next pick. Your playoff team, the NC State Wolfpack, host a Texas Tech team fresh off an overtime win against Houston. Texas Tech is 2-0. Good for Texas Tech, because I think we both projected them to potentially be the worst team in the Big 12. So far, they're playing in a way, even without their starting quarterback, that maybe they'll avoid that. That will probably be West Virginia. More on them later. For now, I do like NC State, but don't be surprised again if Texas Tech makes this ugly, if Devin Leary struggles for a bit before he figures it out. I do like NC State, but I don't think it's going to be a blowout that some people might be expecting.
I don't think it's a blowout. I think the difference isn't Devin Leary, though. It's the NC State defense. That defense will be the best defense potentially that Texas Tech plays the entire season. I don't think they'll necessarily be totally ready for that. Everything you said, though, about Texas Tech, though, Aaron, fantastic. NC State, though, is at home. I think the crowd will be ready for that. They got their scare already against East Carolina. They're not going to take Tech lightly.
Yeah, I agree. Michigan State goes to Washington. We just saw Washington State beat Wisconsin. So the Pac-12 feeling okay, actually, after week 2 compared to what they did in week 1. And this is a great opportunity for a Washington team that fell flat on their face in week 1 last year. Remember, they lost to FCS Montana and scored 7 points. This is a different offense with Kevin DeBoer as their head coach, or Jake DeBoer, whichever first name is correct. DeBoer's the last name. There you go. I'm torn. I'm picking Michigan State, but I talked about it last week. I thought Washington State would give Wisconsin all kinds of problems. Didn't think they'd beat them. They did. It could be the same thing. I'm going to pick Michigan State, but Johnny, you'll talk about this. Vegas feels the exact same way.
Yeah, Washington's 3.5-point favorite. I'm picking the Spartans right now, but it's probably going to be my lowest confidence pick, and I very well could change by the time we get to Saturday. Michigan State did not look good in their opener against Western Michigan. They still won by multiple possessions, so don't be worried about that. But Washington, again, sometimes those young teams don't know what they don't know, and coming off a bad year, it's much like Texas Tech. Coming in motivated, you're together as a team trying to prove everybody wrong. It's easy to sell us against the world. Michigan State, are you prepared to be the hunted? We'll see here. So I do have the Spartans. I think this could potentially be a high-scoring game. Washington's defense and secondary, though, is always at least a quality unit.
Yeah.
Can't say the same for the Spartans' defense. Wouldn't be surprised if there's an upset in Seattle.
Well, and remember who Washington's quarterback is. Michael Penix Jr., who played for Indiana. So he's got plenty of Big Ten experience. He will not be, he's an inexperienced guy. He's not going to be scared of Michigan State. He's not going to be scared of a Big Ten team. So he's been there, done that. So will that help Washington, you would think? But I do like Sparty, but I'm a little scared about that one. I'm going to have that low confidence. All right, UCF heads to Florida Atlantic. At face value, you would probably just pick UCF based on name recognition. And I agree. I think that's going to be the right pick. But where will UCF's head be at after a tough Friday night loss against Louisville, a game in which if they win, they're staring 12-0 in the season as a real possibility? The offense just did not show up for UCF. And the offense is going to have to score some points against Florida Atlantic. Florida Atlantic's got a good offense. They're 2-1. I am picking UCF, but I think they win by 10. I don't think they blow out the Owls.
Yeah, I got UCF for the same, the headspace is the biggest issue here because on the field and on paper, UCF should win this game. Then they should win by multiple possessions. Not that Florida Atlantic is a bad team by any stretch, but UCF recruits at a higher level. They have better coaching. They should be able to win this game. But that offensive performance after the first couple drives was just anemic. So if they can get their heads turned around, be able to recover, they've had the extra days to do so, which usually you would think would be helpful. I'll go with UCF, and in a lot of tight matchups this week, that one somehow figures to be in the medium to high range in confidence.
Yeah. All right. This takes us to our final pick and the primetime showdown between Miami and Texas A&M. And I'm shocked because I'm looking at ESPN. 61% of people are picking Texas A&M to win this game, which is weird to me. Like, I don't know. Part of me thinks that if Texas A&M scored 14 points against App State, they're not going to score that much more against Mario Cristobal in Miami. I'm taking the Hurricanes. I think it's going to be a good game. But I'm taking Miami on the road, and I don't really have to think about that twice, considering what we saw last week. I mean, we'll find out. We're going to find out about the Aggies. Do they let the season spiral, or do they come back, get a win against a good quality opponent, and get back on the right track? We're going to find out right here, right now, in this game.
History says they respond well. Texas A&M at least hasn't been a program in the past where they do spiral like perhaps an LSU or a Florida or a Nebraska.
Yeah.
They usually do respond well. I think they do respond well. I don't think responding well is good enough. Where are the points coming from other than A-Chain on special teams?
Right.
Where are the points coming from? Miami has Tyler Van Dyke. They did struggle in that first half against Southern Miss, probably looking ahead to this game, in my opinion.
Yeah.
Because they took care of business, nearly covered the game in the second half. Quarterback play. Mario Cristobal is not a rookie coach. He won't be outclassed by Jimbo Fisher. I think in a different situation, A&M comes back, finds a way to score, and wins pretty handily, but not against Miami and not in this spot. So I have the Hurricanes as well.
Yeah. Well, again, we'll see what kind of team the Aggies are when their backs are against the wall. So far, not good. Jonny, take a guess. How many times has Texas A&M been in the red zone this season?
6.
1. They've been in the red zone 1 time. Here's a stat from Barrett Sally. Texas A&M is tied for the national lead in red zone scoring percentage at 100 because they are 1 of 1 in the red zone. So it's been big
what
plays.
Was the score of their first game?
31-0 against Southern, a game that had some weather stuff too, but the defense was scoring, like special teams made it anyways. Gosh. So do with that stat what you will, but that speaks to the fact that they can't sustain drives. We saw that because App State had 41 minutes of possession against Texas A&M. So the Aggies are just completely inept on offense, and that's going to have to change because, again, Miami's defense is good, but I believe that offense will find a way to score. The defense is great for A&M. I think that goes without saying. The defense has allowed 17 points in 2 games, but I mean, you
got to help them out.
Yep.
And I think we all kind of looked past that first game for A&M with the score just because we're like, well, it was weather delay. It's a young quarterback. Like that had to be tough. And it was a long weather delay, not like an hour. It was like 3 or 4 hours, I believe. So we missed it. We missed that coming with App State a little bit, I think.
Yep. Yeah. All right. Well, that kind of wraps us up for picks of the week, but you've got some picks yourself, your best bets. If you will, walk us through how you did last week. It was definitely a better week 2 than it was week 1 for you. Again, if you're betting Monopoly money, then you don't probably have enough money to buy Boardwalk, but hey, you're getting some, your light blue and purple squares. That's where you start. So what do you got for us this week?
Hey, we were in the green this last week. We're in the green overall, so that's always a good thing. So I'll just go rapid fire here real quick.
Yep.
Miami, that bad first half, like I mentioned before, did not cover against Southern Miss. It was 26.5. They only won by 23. Houston and Texas Tech was actually a push because Texas Tech winning in overtime meant they didn't have to kick the extra point. They only win by 3, and we get a push there. We get lucky. USC did cover Stanford. They were favored by 9. They won by 13. Air Force covered Colorado easily. We mentioned, that issue there with Colorado. Air Force was favored by 17. They won by 31. Memphis covered easily again as well. They were favored by 6.5 over Navy. They won by 24. So 3-1-1 for the week. Not too bad.
Pretty good. So
we'll take it. This week, I had a little bit harder time. I felt like they just jumped off the screen to me last week. It was pretty easy. First one is Air Force covering against Wyoming. This is a bad Cowboys team. This is not the same. They got decimated by Illinois, and I realize that's a Power 5 program. Illinois is not as bad as they have been, but
they got decimated by the transfer portal before the season even started. So
right, it's not a good team to begin with. They're really struggling, and I really like this Falcons team. Air Force is a really solid squad. They are my favorite, especially at this point, to win the Mountain West.
Yep.
So nobody's talking about them. Personally, I would have had them ranked over A&M and Oregon this week too. So that's neither here nor there. Wrong segment. Air Force, 17-point favorites at Wyoming. I'm going with them again.
Wow.
So that's my first one. I know that's a big number, but it was last week too. I think they cover yet again. Love the Air Force Falcons. I have Oklahoma covering against Nebraska, 11.5-point favorite. I think it's reasonable to think they win this game by 2 touchdowns. I don't think anybody would be stunned by that. So that's pick number 2. I have Coastal Carolina covering 14-point favorites against Buffalo. Buffalo this week lost to who did Buffalo lose to? FCS
Holy
opponent.
Cross.
Holy Cross. Now given on a Hail Mary, but they were put in that position, and it was a tied game, I believe, before that Hail Mary.
Yeah.
So Coastal Carolina's had some tough battles. They've been tight matchups early, but that's facing a quality Army team, which Army's potentially the best 0-2 team in the country at this point in the season. Just a really tough first 2 games. Buffalo's real bad. They are really bad. I think Coastal at home kind of uses this game to get right, beats Buffalo by more than 14. I was going to potentially bet Notre Dame. I won't after hearing Buckner's hurt.
Yeah. Just
it being a 9-point, I really expect the Irish to bounce back well. I don't think California's really 2-0 is great. They have played no one. So I do expect the Irish to bounce back, but that will not be one of the games I'm looking at this week. The other one is I do have BYU as a 3.5-point dog. This is my dog winning outright against Oregon on the road, 3.5-point. And then my other one, again, will not be betting this week, but actually, yes, I will be. Wisconsin, 37.5-point favorite against New Mexico State. I think they cover. I think they easily cover. And that's not because how I think about Wisconsin necessarily, but I think they're going to be angry. They're going to bounce back. And New Mexico State's one of the 5 worst schools in the country when it comes to football. No offense, New Mexico State, still love you guys, but I think Wisconsin covers that one as well. I know that's a gigantic number. That's breaking my rule. If anything over 30, you don't touch it, but we'll go with it.
All right. Well, very good. Good luck with that. I hope the Monopoly board fills up with all of your tokens.
Would you like one last game that I'm looking at?
Bonus? Yeah, hit me. Yeah.
Bonus if you're just love football so much and you need professional help like me.
Yeah.
That the sickos game of the week for me is
Ooh.
that Nevada at Iowa game. It will be outstanding football. Nevada is 2-1 somehow. They have a winning record. They are really, really bad. Iowa is a 23-point favorite, which bold of Vegas to think Iowa is capable of 23 points. So we will see. We will see how this game goes. It will be ugly. It will be terrible. Honorable mentions is UTEP at New Mexico and Duquesne at Hawaii.
Oh.
That's Hawaii's maybe only opportunity for a win this year.
Unfortunately,
so it deserves
yes.
a mention.
Yes. All right. Very good.
There are no betting odds for Duquesne, Hawaii. So if you are deplorable and looking for that, it does not exist.
Oh gosh. All right. Nice. So before we wrap up, I want to ask you, because we talked about the disaster that Nebraska has been, but we did not in the podcast. Again, I encourage you to go listen to that episode, but we did not really touch on where they go from here. So obviously, if you have existed in college football and coached at all, your name has at least been thrown out there. Like, what about this guy? I mean, anything from Urban Meyer to Ed Orgeron, but is there anybody that, like, if you're Nebraska and you're sitting there and you're looking across the landscape of college football, is there anyone you just point to and say, you're next. Good luck.
See, Ed Orgeron is interesting as an infusion.
I agree.
But is he a program builder?
Based on what we saw at LSU, no.
No. So Ed Orgeron might have almost been a better answer instead of Scott Frost, because they were kind of, stuck in mediocrity, and he might have had the opportunity to elevate them for a few years. The names that seem reasonable that come to mind that are program builders, I think Matt Campbell has been floated. That's a great one. Mm-hmm. If you could pry him from Iowa State, I think that would be about as good as you can do. Let me find him. Coastal Carolina's head coach. Just what he has been able to do with the offense there with Grayson McCall has just been fantastic. Just what the Jamie Chadwell, that's it. He's going to be up for a lot of potential big name head coaching jobs in the next coming years, thanks to Grayson McCall. But just how they run their zone read option is very unique. And maybe that's, Nebraska's looking in that same vein. I would steer away from that. I think he's done a great job building the program. But I think rather than looking at an offensive mind specifically, I think they just need to be looking at a culture program builder in a Brian Kelly sense, where it might not be a popular hire. It might be the right one, though, if that makes the most sense. You need someone who's going to redo the culture, rebuild the program. It might not be flashy. It might not be the best offensive mind. It might even be a defensive coach. Honestly, for Nebraska, I would lean towards a defensive coach. Find someone who can build the program. I think Jamie Chadwell, I think Matt Campbell are the two names that come to my mind that I love. I think Matt Campbell would be a splashy hire in some senses. I think that's where I look. I look at those lower tier program builders, even looking at like maybe Oregon State's head coach right now. He's been able to resurrect the team from nothing. Look at those coaches if you're Nebraska. I know everybody's throwing out like Urban Meyer and Ed O, but I think there's a lot better opportunities and coaches that might be realistic with what is possible in the next year or two at Nebraska.
Yeah, I'll give a name, and maybe this falls more in the category of an Urban Meyer or an Ed O. But you watch that Texas defense against Alabama, and that was what stuck out, right? I mean, it was like, whoa, this is worlds different. I know he's not technically the defensive coordinator, but who did Texas bring into that program?
Yeah,
they brought in Gary Patterson, 150 plus wins at TCU, put TCU on the map, was almost single-handedly brought that team from kind of the depths of college football to national prominence, a Big 12 conference. So he's well equipped to take a team from the ashes and rebuild them. I don't know, and he's older, so maybe his head coaching days are done. Maybe he's content being whatever special assistant he is at Texas, which is, I think, far more than that.
Oh, yeah.
Does Nebraska try to pull in Gary Patterson? Is he open to that?
I think that's fantastic.
I think that'd be great. He would solve the defense, you would think. I know TCU went like 23-22 in his last 4 years. I know it didn't end well, but I think there's potential there. You would think there'd be some level of stability there. He would improve the defense. He would improve the recruiting, which, by the way, the recruiting for Nebraska right now is bad. So there's people throwing out like Tom Herman, Dan Mullen, and Dan Mullen's interesting, but what was his flaw? If you ask Florida fans, he couldn't recruit. So, and for a variety of different reasons, that probably doesn't make sense. But those are Gary
That's
Patterson.
great if he wants to go. Aaron, like you said, we're not sure he's looking for it, but that would be my first call. That's a great choice.
Yeah.
I mean, he was responsible for that game plan, and like you said, and I don't even know if it's necessarily I need a strong recruiter right now. I need a culture developer and someone who's going to maximize the players there.
Yeah.
Like Kansas is like 128th in recruiting this year. They
Right.
just beat West Virginia.
Well, there's a name for you. Lance Leopold might be a name. Absolutely.
Yeah, but you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
the recruiting will come in a sense, and this next coach might not be, if Nebraska ever gets back to where they're going to be, this next coach most likely will not be the one who sees them as a superpower again.
Yeah.
You just need them to build them back up to respectable. And Gary Patterson's absolutely that. So
Yeah. It'd be an interesting hire. I think we're a ways from it. I imagine that we'll kind of just be under the interim tag for the remainder of the season, and we'll see. And that's the other thing too. Like, I don't know. I don't think this is likely, but let's say Nebraska finds a way to end the season 6-3. You'll have it, or maybe, I don't know, 6-3, 7-2. At that point, do you not look at the interim in that situation? I don't know. Time will tell. So. Okay, that's my thoughts there. Anything else you want to add about college football this week before we wrap up?
Not a ton else. There's a lot of just lying in the awaiting in the weeds type of a game. Games this week. There's not a ton of big name ones. I guess I will throw out just like a couple games that are like really fun.
Yeah.
That we haven't mentioned. Purdue and at Syracuse. Odds are even.
Yep.
Really fun game. So check that out. SMU at Maryland. 3.5 point favorite for Maryland. Ton of points in that game if you just love watching that type of game. Kansas at Houston. That'll be the last one that I mentioned here. Kansas at Houston. Kansas is rolling. They're looking good. Houston's another animal, I would say. But how does Houston respond to the disappointing loss there against Texas Tech? They got another Big 12 opponent coming in. One of their future conference rivals that they'll also be playing. They're at home, 9.5 point favorites. But again, Aaron, like you're saying, and again, these are college kids. How you respond will determine that game. Houston's far more talented than Kansas, but Kansas is believing and confident right now. They won't be afraid going into Houston.
Yeah.
They just beat West Virginia, and so that'll be another fun one. I think interesting game to keep an eye on. It might not be your original choice in that time, that slate of games, but it's one that you should keep an eye on, and maybe you'll end up flipping to it if the game you're watching isn't as competitive as you expected.
Yeah, I like that. I'll give you one here. I had it and I lost it. Which game was that? Oh, Old Dominion obviously knocked off Virginia Tech. They could do the clean sweep of Virginia schools here. They do travel to the road, but the Cavaliers have been just terrible. I mean, I was shocked that Illinois beat Virginia as bad as they did. So that's certainly a possibility. And of course, in true somewhat sickos fashion, I have to take you as late into the night as possible with these games. Let's talk about San Diego State at Utah. I mean, Utah just put up like 70 points. Is San Diego State any good? Probably not. But the one that you should watch, the Mountain West versus Pac-12 showdown, Fresno State at USC. Fresno State should be able to put up some points. If USC takes Fresno State lightly, which they shouldn't, and I don't think they will with Lincoln Riley, but look out. This is a 10:30 kick look out if you are the USC Trojans. I don't think Stanford's very good this year. I hate to say that. Rice is certainly not good. Fresno State could actually be the best team you've played so far this year. That's a real possibility.
Absolutely. They are.
So we'll see. We'll see.
Yeah. It took Oregon State rolling the dice with a second left on the clock and walk-off touchdown to beat Fresno State. Yeah. So that the Bulldogs are a real quality team.
That's my Mountain West favorite team.
Love the pick.
Yeah.
Love the pick.
We'll see. So I will be staying up for that. Well, obviously, I mean, we'll have Miami, Texas A&M doesn't kick till 9, but after that, I am hoping that USC Fresno State game is close at halftime so we can just roll into that game. So that's what we'll be doing, as well as maybe continuing our college football tour. More on that later. So I think that wraps up the show. But Jonny, thanks for doing it again. Thanks for the picks. We'll see how we do this week. It should be good. So, all right, YouTube, thanks for checking in. We'll see you guys next week.